were just lifted off the internet.
All of these supporters are African American.
What a coincidence.
The flyers said he was endorsed by Ron Wilson. No, not the former state representative. The fine print says Ron Wilson is Dave Wilson's cousin.
That's correct. We are.
You really got a cousin named Ron Wilson?
Yeah.
Okay.
Edna and Jean's boy.
Yeah. Did he really endorse you?
Yeah.
You called him?
I called him up. Yeah, in Bloomfield, Iowa.
Yeah.
In a heavily African-American district, Wilson won by 26 votes.
I don't think it's good. I don't think it's good for both democracy and the whole concept of fair play. But that was not his intent, apparently.
Austin has said he'll ask for a recount. But in an era of electronic voting, political analysts think Wilson's victory will hold, despite his deliberately deceptive flyers. Doug Miller, KHOU 11 News.
Strange but true. Wilson says that he's fed up with what he calls all the shenanigans going on at the Houston Community College system. If his victory holds, he'll serve on that board for the next 6 years.
Okay, I want to point out a couple of things here. In my opinion, this man never led anyone to believe he was black. He was appealing to black voters. And so he put together flyers with pictures of black people. He never had a picture of himself. He simply excluded his picture. This is not deception, as much as it illustrates the stupidity of the voters there, if not the racism. It's amazing. They vote for a black guy. They vote for a man they assume is a black guy because he sends out, look, anybody could send out flyers with black people. Anybody. The whole story is just amazing, but it shows you that the black voters there have no idea who they're voting for. They have no idea who they're voting for. They figure it's a black guy, and so I'll vote for him. They have no idea what he even stands for, and they'll vote for him. Because I got these flyers, and he's a part of our community, and he's been endorsed by this guy, who happens to be his cousin. It says right there, in print, very clearly, that it was his cousin who endorsed him, and they still voted for him. And he's a white guy. And now they're ticked off, not because he might do a bad job. They're ticked off because he's a white guy. That's racism. Now, the guy he ran against, who has been on the school board for 24 years, you know, we really do need to have term limits at every level of government. Because when a person is entrenched, and this guy has been a school board member for 24 years, at the very least, he's going to be lazy. And that kind of longevity in a specific political seat really does open itself up to all kinds of corruption. I'm not saying that this guy was corrupt at all. I have no idea. And the guy who lost the election, who's been there 24 years, he might be a very decent guy. But, wow, what a story that is. Okay, we go over to side 2, and we're going to spend it with Jonathan Kauser talking about his trip to Dubai. You're going to find this fascinating. I'm Jimmy Z. It's the Big Jimmy Z Show right here at thejimmyzshow.com. If you don't get the second hour automatically wherever you're listening, come over to thejimmyzshow.com and click the player for side 2, and we'll talk to you there.
The Jimmy Z Show.
Monday morning, time to get out of bed. My mind still echoes with the words that you said. And I know this time, oh, you wasn't just talking. You're not really the material kind, but life without worry would suit you just fine. If I don't come through, nothing, but I swear I'll make all your dreams come true. Just hold on, baby. Hold on to me. Hold on to me. Baby, you'll see. If you just hold on to me. I've let you down so many damn times, and it takes a strong woman to keep it inside, and you do it well. That's how I know you love me. If it wasn't for you and our little man, I would have cashed it in before this hell began. But you keep me strong, yeah, nothing's gonna stop me. And I know you need to hold on to something, and all I can offer is better than nothing. But I swear I'll make all your dreams come true. Just hold on, baby. Hold on to me. Hold on to me. Baby, you'll see. If you just hold on to me. Well, here we go. Hold on to me. Hold on to me. Baby, just hold on to me. You gotta hold on to me. Hold on to me. You gotta hold on to me. Baby, you'll see. If you just hold on to me.
Everybody, Jimmy Z. It's the Big Jimmy Z Show, side 2 now. And we're going to spend the hour with Jonathan Kauser. And it's a fascinating story I want him to tell about traveling to Dubai. So let's start up the hour, and I think I've got plenty of time to do everything I want to do. You're listening to the Jimmy Z Show.
Here I come to save the day.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Jimmy Z Show, don't take no time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Jimmy Z Show, don't take no time.
The Jimmy Z Show is produced, written, and directed by Jimmy Z. The show is wholly owned by Jimmy Z. All rights reserved. Content from other sources belong to the copyright holder and/or speaker in each case. Jimmy Z can be reached via email at thejimmyzshow@gmail.com or by calling 714-905-9591. That's 714-905-9591.
I think I need to see a doctor.
Hey, do you have that Obamacare?
Obamacare? What's that? What's that?
Oh, it's great.
It's great?
It's great.
What is it?
I started signing up last Thursday and I'm almost done. Let's go to the website and get you signed up.
Oh, okay.
Let's see here. Let's see. This can't be too hard, right?
Why is it spinning?
Oh, it does that.
Okay. Why is it smoking?
I don't... Maybe we should restart it. Obamacare by morning. Why is this taking so long?
So long.
So long.
Oh, hold on. I'm gonna wind up with hemorrhoids if I sit here till dawn. We'll have cataracts and dementia. Oh, this is getting on my last nerve. Obamacare by morning. Over 6 people served.
We know that millions of Americans are praying for our country. And yet, Barack Obama won re-election. Disappointment leads Americans to doubt. And doubt leads to fear. But what if our prayers for America have been answered?
God answers prayer.
Maybe. We just don't know it yet. This is the Jimmy Z Show. No hablamos español.
If my people, who are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, and will forgive their sin, and will heal their land.
And now, nationwide Boss Talk Radio KJZS presents the Jimmy Z Show.
Oh boy, here we go.
Everybody, welcome back. Jimmy Z, the big Jimmy Z Show, right here at thejimmyzshow.com, where I don't care about opinion, just give me the truth. And I should remind you that the Jimmy Z Show is heard on the Planet Z radio network. That is Right Talk Radio, Net Talk World, Red State Talk Radio, Ghostfighter Radio, TalkStream Live, Podomatic, WTSA Internet Radio, and TalkSuperstation.com. The Planet Z network. Internet radio on a universal scale. All right, next up on the Jimmy Z Show, I'm very happy to have Jonathan Kauser. He's the owner and proprietor of freedomtorch.com. That's an alternative to Facebook, and it's a conservative social network, a very nice site. And Jonathan and I have a couple things we want to talk about today, and it's going to be a very interesting interview. So, first off, Jonathan, say hi to everybody.
Hey, everybody. How are you?
Now, Jonathan and I have known each other for some time now, and Jonathan recently went on a trip to the Middle East, and that was Dubai, right?
Yeah, that's right. Place I never thought I would go.
I think few people have ever been there, and so I really look forward to talking about that. But first, because you live in New York City, I want to talk about the election of your new mayor, Blasio. When does he take office?
I believe it's January 1st. They usually do it on January 1st in New York.
Now, my first question is, are the people of New York as left as Blasio is? You got 73% of the people in New York who voted for Blasio. De Blasio or de Blasio?
De Blasio.
De Blasio. Yeah. Are the people of New York City really this far left? Are the people of New York City generally happy with all of the limitations that Bloomberg was trying to put on their lives?
You know, they weren't happy with all the food limitations of Bloomberg. And I don't think they were unhappy with his stop and frisk and all that, you know, because they were happy as anybody would be that crime was held down during his time in office, as it was under Giuliani.
And it was way down.
Huh?
And it was way down.
Yeah, it continued to go down because he kept the same police chief that Giuliani had, Raymond Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
So Kelly has done an awesome job, and any mayor who keeps him will be considered a good mayor. But de Blasio has promised to get rid of him as soon as possible.
Wow.
The whole city, it's going to be a nightmare here. A year from now, it's going to be New York like it was back in the 70s. I'm telling you, I'm already seeing graffiti on the subways again. It's unbelievable, the changes that we're going to see in the next year or two.
Right, and it's going to be more like the Dinkins years. And what's really a shame is that a number of people will finally have to wake up, and you might end up next time with someone like Giuliani again. But it seems like people really do need to go through the pain of seeing what liberalism is about, and then they kind of get the idea.
Yeah, their memories are about 20 years long, and that's about it. But,
Yeah.
you know, the thing about Giuliani, he was a well-known public figure. He was the, what was he, attorney something or other, district attorney or something.
Right.
No, federal. He was a federal. What do they call the guys? The federal?
He was the, God, well, now that you asked, I can't pop it up.
You know what I'm talking about. And
Attorney
he was
General.
well known, and he busted the mafia bad, and he, became well known because of that. And he did a great job. So people knew about him long before he was ever mayor. I don't see anybody on the horizon, Jimmy, like Giuliani. I don't see anybody in public life in New York City at that level right now.
And it does take someone at that level to
That's
be
right.
available for that kind of election, for that kind of victory.
That's exactly right. For instance, when Reagan became president, us conservatives knew about Reagan years and years before he ever became president.
That's right.
We knew 20, 15, and 10 years ahead of time that he would make a great president. There's no one I can look at in New York City public life and say he would be a great mayor. Not a single person.
Or he would be a great governor.
Yeah, right. And this guy who ran against de Blasio, Joe Lhota, the Republican, what a disgrace. I mean, he's to the left of Chris Christie. Chris Christie he at least put up a front that he was kind of against same-sex marriage. But Joe Lhota, his whole campaign was, no, I'm not like those Republicans on the national scene. I'm not a Tea Party conservative. I love same-sex marriage. I love abortion. That was Joe Lhota's campaign.
Well, and that's how you lose elections, is giving people liberalism and a little bit lighter version of liberalism.
Right.
The way we win elections is to give people a genuine choice so that they can see, well, this guy is going to do something differently. And I don't think the people... That might be one reason why the de Blasio victory was so one-sided.
Yeah. Well, I have to tell you, too, though, I mean, I agree with that on a national level, but there are cities in this country that are so liberal that literally anybody who stands on anything that would have once been considered Judeo-Christian values, if they're outspoken about it, they simply can't win. They just won't win. The secular, non-Christian, atheist, agnostic voters simply will not vote for them.
Do you think that's... why do you think that is? Let me ask it that way.
Well, I think it's because there's so few real Christians left in America today. So when someone comes along and says, I'm for same-sex marriage, everybody says, yeah, that's right, that's fair, give people their dignity. No one says, wait, that's a sin. We can't have government sponsoring sin.
Yeah, well, I wanted to, since we're talking about social issues now, before we started this off the air, I mentioned to you that de Blasio intends to shut down pregnancy crisis centers that are not offering abortion as an option, which means Christian crisis pregnancy centers that will try to offer different ways for the woman to save her baby. He wants to shut these down. Now, I don't know legally if he can, but this is how left de Blasio is.
Yeah, that's right. And I'll tell you, most New Yorkers would agree wholeheartedly with that. They wouldn't have the slightest problem with it because, for them, abortion is a huge issue. They don't want anything to scale back abortion. So when he comes out and says, well, I'm going to close these down, they're like, fine, let him go to a pregnancy center that supports abortion.
I don't know if you know this or not. One of the statistics I read in this article was that 4 in 10 pregnancies in New York City end in abortion.
Wow.
I mean, that's shocking, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess people don't realize 40% of the women who get pregnant were raped or their life is in danger if they have the child.
Yeah. No, that would be the way that a lot of people think.
It's birth control, and look, I wrote an article on this a few years ago before I'd heard anybody say it, and I'm glad to hear a lot of people talk about this more now. But it's birth control in the poorest communities, which means typically black and Hispanic communities.
Right.
So more black babies are killed in the womb than white babies. All these people who care so much about race, why don't they care about that?
And all these people in the black community who care about race, and we could do a whole show on self-induced black genocide that is going on in this country right now. But we're a couple of white guys, so it really it wouldn't be taken too well from black people, I don't think.
Yeah, well, too bad.
No, it is the truth. Absolutely.
Yeah,
well,
it's the truth. That's right.
It's going to be very interesting to watch what happens in New York City as de Blasio takes over around the first of the year. I don't want to take any more time with that, though, because I want to save as much time as we can to talk about your trip. So I think the place to start is tell my listeners briefly what caused you to travel to Dubai.
Well, last September, remember, we had all the Muslim riots going around in the Muslim world over supposedly that film. And we had the murders in Benghazi. And then the Muslims erupted all around the Muslim world, rioting against America and this and that. Well, a couple of weeks after that, a girl wrote to me, and I had posted something about the riots on Facebook. And this girl wrote to me and she said, yeah, it's really bad here. So I read the word here and I thought, I wonder where she is. So I went to her profile page and it said she was in Pakistan. And it said she was a Christian. So I thought, wow, that's interesting. A Christian girl in Pakistan who I could actually talk to through Facebook.
Yeah.
So I wrote her back and said, so tell me what it's like there. Are you really in Pakistan? And she said, yeah, I really am. And I said, so tell me what it's like there. So she started telling me in her cute broken English, and one thing led to another. We kept talking, and a few weeks later, I felt such a heart to want to try to help her and her family somehow, and I had no idea how to do it because my business hasn't been that great, and I didn't have really much money I could send to them or anything. But one day I asked her if she had a job, and she said she used to, but she got fired. And she said it's really hard to get a job there as a Christian because Christians are in the back of the line for everything. So if there's one Muslim in front of you who has applied for the job, they'll get the job first, even if you're more qualified.
Excuse me for 1 second, but how does everyone know that a given person, do you have to register as a Christian or something?
Well, I was shocked to find out when she sent me a copy of her national ID card for Pakistan. Right at the top it says religion.
Wow.
And then next to that it says Christian on hers, and everybody else says Muslim. So everybody knows. Anytime you do any business, you do any important transactions, everyone knows that you're a Christian and not a Muslim. Everyone knows. It's like wearing a yellow star, Yeah,
it is. I never knew that. That's amazing.
I didn't know that either. So, suddenly it occurred to me, I don't have a lot of money to send, but I could send $50 or so. So I started sending her family $50 a month, and they were so grateful. And one day she said, we'd like to talk to you on Skype and say thank you. So she had to walk through her little town about 30 minutes to get to what they call an internet cafe, what we would just call a concrete block wall room that looks like a prison cell with a computer in the middle of it. And they would talk to me on a really slow internet connection. The electricity there goes off every other hour for an hour, then it comes back on an hour later. And she brought her parents, and she translated between us. And I just thought, my first impression of her was, wow, I can't believe her. She's smiling and happy all the time, and she lives in hell.
Yeah, she lives in a lifestyle 300-400 years ago.
Yes, exactly.
With electricity.
With some electricity, exactly. And so we started talking on Skype maybe once a month for a couple of months, and then once a week. And just every time I thought, this girl is so amazing. She's always happy. She loves God. Her faith is so strong. I mean, she's been kidnapped at one point by a family who wanted her to marry their son. And she said, I can't marry your son because he's a Muslim and I'm a Christian. They said, no problem, you will become a Muslim. And she said, no, I won't become a Muslim. And they actually kidnapped her and locked her in a bedroom in their house and held her there for 30 days, for a month. And at one point they told her, if you don't become a Muslim, we'll kill you. This girl had every opportunity to walk away from her Christian faith and say, no, okay, I will become a Muslim. I'll even have a nicer life because you people are rich and I'm not. She didn't say, she never even considered doing that. She never considered turning her back on Christ. And I thought, I love her faith. That's the kind of girl I would love to have in my life. And then eventually we started talking along those lines and decided to get married. And in order for her to come here, for us to get married, she has to get what's called a fiancé visa. And in order to get that, the government requires that we have to actually meet in person. So
that's the U.S. government.
The U.S. government, that's right. The government, we think, lets everybody in until somebody wants to come in legally. Then they make it really hard.
Yeah. If she was in Mexico, she could stroll across the border.
She could stroll across the border, get voting rights, get some welfare.
Let me ask you something really quick before we continue on. Is her family Christian, or some of them, or most of them? Or?
Well, everybody, and she has a sister and two brothers, and everybody's a Christian except her older brother.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah. So I thought, well, then I will go to Pakistan. I don't want to go to Pakistan. I don't want to be in a place for a few days that has electricity every other hour. I don't want anything to do with that. But I thought, you know what, I will go there and meet her. So I started the process. We have to apply for a visa to go to Pakistan. And Pakistan wants to make sure we're not going to live there, that we're going to leave and come back here. Because they don't want a lot of immigrants coming over there. Like we want to live there, you know?
Yeah. So, like there's a big risk.
Yeah. Anyway, it came down to the fact that my purpose for the visit was to meet this single unmarried girl. And Pakistan, a Muslim, very strict Muslim country, they just really looked down on that.
Yeah.
And it turned out they were not going to let me come for that purpose. They would not let a single American guy come to Pakistan to meet a single girl because they think, well, too many bad things could happen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so talk about geographically undesirable, Jimmy. I can't go to her country and she can't come to mine, but we're planning to get married.
Wow.
So we did some research and found out one country where we both could go relatively easily was the United Arab Emirates, the UAE. So we decided to go to Dubai, and that's how I ended up there.
Now, quickly, if you don't mind, give me a little bit about your trip, getting on the plane, getting off the plane. How soon at the airport, when you arrived, did you notice that you were definitely in a Muslim country?
Well, interesting you would ask that because it took me several days to notice. The first thing I noticed when I got off at the airport was, wow, this looks like a new version of America. The airport's beautiful. And then we got out of the airport and we're driving a cab through town into Dubai. And I was just kind of freaking out. Looking at the highway, looking at the road signs, looking at the power lines above the road, it was like, this looks exactly like the United States. I literally was stunned by how much it looks like our country, like a newer version of our country, a modern, clean, newer version.
Did you have a sense of comfort or relief, anything like that, as you looked around and saw familiar things?
Well, you know, honestly, I had a sense of boredom because when I travel, I like to see things that look different.
Yeah.
And I just thought, there's no reason for an American to come here. It's the same old thing, you know. And Dubai, honestly, attracts people from all around the Middle East who don't have anything like an America to go to. And a lot of people from Europe like to go there because it's very warm in the wintertime.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, my reaction was, this is boring. I've seen this before, you know. So it took about 3 or 4 days before I started noticing differences because the differences were kind of subtle. And the first difference I noticed, and I mentioned this to my fiance, and I said, you know, I just realized I have not seen anyone smile here. I said, people have such hard looks on their faces, such harsh grimaces. And I thought, wow, very, very hard life or unhappy people or something. I don't know. And I think a lot of that comes from their religion, that they follow a false religion. The second difference I noticed was probably after about the fourth day, when suddenly we went over to the beach in Dubai. Not in Dubai. There's another emirate called Ajman. Dubai is an emirate. You know, it's United Arab Emirates. There's 7 emirates or kingdoms. And Ajman is a place that's about 20 minutes, 30 minutes away from Dubai. And we were there. And we went over to the local beach there. You know, we walked around for maybe a half hour, and suddenly I looked up and I thought, oh, wow, I have not seen a single woman here. I thought, what beach can you go to in the world and not see women all over the place? Mm-hmm. And we did see a few women there, but they were all dressed, I'm telling you, head to toe in those black robes, their faces completely covered. And it was just like, wow, that's crazy. I mean, I didn't expect to see bikinis in the Middle East, although in Dubai you will, because of all the Western tourists, and they're actually very tolerant of that.
And so they're allowed. I was going to ask you.
They're allowed. That's right.
If I decided to travel with a woman and we were going to go to the beach and I'll put on my swim trunks and she puts on a bikini, that's not a problem, huh?
If you do it right in Dubai. But if you go outside of the big tourist areas where we were, I don't think wearing a bikini would be a good idea at all. I mean, she and I got stares from people because we would hold hands while we walked down the street.
And you're obviously white, and she's obviously Middle Eastern.
Right.
Wow.
Exactly.
So how did that make you feel when you were walking and holding hands and you sensed disapproval? Were you? What was going through your head?
Well, the first sense of disapproval I sensed came directly from her, because she's from Pakistan and she understands these cultures. Mm-hmm. And I would reach down to hold her hand and she'd say, "Don't touch me." I thought, is she breaking up with me or what? And she said, look, people don't like that here. I said, this is Dubai. It's the UAE. They're much more tolerant here. And it turned out we both were right. I was right. They're more tolerant. They won't do anything to you if you do it. But she was right, too. They look down on it, and they'll stare at you as you do it. And, these men would just stare, not a quick glance, but a lingering stare. And I would look at them, and then I would turn and look back a minute later, and they're still looking at us. I'm like, what are you guys looking at? It was crazy. I felt oppressed there. I felt a bit of kind of oppression coming from America. But she was coming from Pakistan, and she felt more freedom than she'd ever felt in her life there.
Oh, man, that's fascinating, too. Now, when you were being looked down on, did it cross your mind at all what it might have been like back in the 50s and the 60s here in America when a black man might have been dating a white woman?
It didn't cross my mind while I was there. Now that you mention it, that's a very good point. But, honestly, I wasn't there long. We were there for 10 days, and it wasn't long enough to really get those kinds of feelings,
Sure.
But, yeah, that's a very good point. See, I wasn't sure why they were looking at us. I thought maybe that's their habit to stare at people. But she knew, and she tried to tell, towards the end of the trip, she said, they stare at us because we're holding hands and I'm wearing Western clothes and you're wearing Western clothes, and, So I just wasn't there long enough to be that immersed in it to feel all that.
Now, there was a time not too long ago on Facebook, you posted some pictures while you were there, and you uploaded pictures that showed kind of the dark is the wrong word, but just kind of an oppressive-looking area. And maybe it was looking into a room from another room or from a street. And some of these pictures, you were writing captions and saying, this is the kind of thing I see, and it makes me feel like this is really not as free a country as an American would hope for. Do you remember that?
What was in the picture? Do you remember?
No, I sure don't. But it doesn't matter. You posted maybe half a dozen of these pictures, and what I'm asking you about is, as you were walking around, and you're an American, you're obviously an American, you look American. Was this a country that led you to feel oppressed, not just because you were holding hands with a woman who was Middle Eastern, but just as an American walking around?
Well, look, Dubai is very open. Their whole economy is based on tourism and inviting foreigners in. And their whole economy is based on foreign workers doing most of the hard labor. So they're actually very welcoming to foreigners.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I didn't feel unwelcomed as an American, but I did feel unwelcomed as a Christian. And as a Christian, one of the things one of the photos I posted was a sign in a mall, and the sign said men's restroom this way, and the prayer room is also that way. The Muslim prayer room. There in every public place, there are signs that point you to the Muslim prayer room, wherever you are, the airport, the malls, anywhere. And I just thought, wow, it's amazing that in America we say we can't even talk about our faith in public, and
right.
Here they have such a boldness about their faith. You know, it's a false faith, I believe, but they have a boldness about their faith, and it's right out there in public. And every few hours, the Muslim call to prayer will come over loudspeakers, and if you're outside, you'll hear it coming from the loudspeakers from the mosque, and if you're inside, you'll hear it coming from the loudspeakers in the restaurant or the mall or wherever you are. And the men, if they want to go pray at that point, they just get up from what they're doing, they walk into the prayer room, they wash their feet in the sink, which they did that in the restroom, not the prayer room, which I found disgusting. And I think the caption I posted under that picture was, "This is coming to America sooner than you think, because we're not standing up for our own faith. We don't have the courage to even stand up for our own faith, which is a true faith and a right and good faith. And look at how boldly they stand up for this false faith."
Right, and they'll stand up boldly for that false faith wherever they are.
That's right. That's right.
Let me ask you this: when the call to prayer happens, and what does that sound like? First off,
well, I found it so jarring, and she didn't even hear it until I mentioned it, because they have that in Pakistan.
Sure.
One night I was talking to her on the phone, and it was 4 a.m. in Pakistan, and she was standing outside, and suddenly I hear this music. I'm like, "What's that?" She said, "It's a call to prayer." I said, "At 4 a.m? She said, "Yeah, it's all the time." And then she laughed. She said, "I didn't even hear it until you mentioned it." So, Jimmy, you know, the thing is, it's very easy for us to go to a place like that and see these things and be stunned by it and come back here thinking we're so much better. But you know what I realized when I was there? We're not that much better at all.
No.
Because if you divide the world into two groups, people who love and follow the God of the Bible and people who are against him, right? There are as many people in this country who are against God as there are in that country, in any Muslim country. Islam is just a different version of being against the God of the Bible, right? So when she comes here, you know what she'll notice that I don't even see? Like she didn't hear the call to prayer until I mentioned it. The types of things she's going to mention to me, we'll be walking down Broadway in Times Square in New York, and she'll see a billboard with a girl who's half naked. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe that they put that right out in public like that.
Yeah, or 90% naked.
Right. Yes, that's right. Exactly. I mean, there's basically porn in the streets here.
Yeah, porn.
And that's
porn theaters that are advertising right out in the open the type of sex you're going to see.
Right. And that is our Muslim call to prayer. That is our way of shouting out in the streets, in public, we hate God too.
Yeah.
You know?
That's really that's an amazing analogy.
Yeah.
Well, what was I going to ask you? So, on the call to prayer, I wanted to ask, like, if you're in a mall or you're walking on the street, on the sidewalk, do all the men pray?
Well, I was actually noticing that, and I noticed most of them don't. But what I realized is, at any one time, you'll see that most of them don't get up and go when the call to prayer comes. But over the course of a week, more than likely, most of them will go 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, so it's not, I don't know anything about this, but is it a requirement that you pray every time there's a call to prayer in the religion of Islam?
Well, I think in the hardcore versions of Islam, they would say, yes, absolutely, you have to go every time. And, you know,
like the Taliban. I'm pretty certain the Taliban would insist.
Well, the Taliban brand of Islam, they despise Dubai. They despise the United Arab Emirates, and they despise Oman, and they despise Qatar.
I bet they do.
All of these Gulf countries are much more moderate in that sense than we would think they were. We tend to like to say they're all the same. They're really not all the same, and a lot of them hate each other for various reasons. But yeah, the hardcore fundamentalist Muslims, they would be appalled at how many men don't go pray. Oh, and that's the other thing, how many men don't go pray. The women aren't even allowed to do this. They don't have prayer rooms for women.
What kind of vehicle did I just hear go by?
It was some kind of helicopter.
Oh, okay. I was curious because maybe you hear that all the time. I was wondering.
See, I didn't even hear that until you mentioned it.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Wow, that's wow. So the call to prayer is every 3 hours or so?
Yeah, 3 or 4 hours, something like that. And I found it jarring every single time for the entire 10 days. And it's amazing, though, that Christians who live in Muslim countries, they really get to the point where they don't hear it. Just like we get to the point where we don't hear all the porn that comes out of the music on the radio. We don't see all the porn that's blasting at us on the streets from billboards and signs and, video monitors. It's kind of the same,
All the crap they're adding to television programs.
Yeah. It's amazing.
So, let's see. I was going to ask you about Christianity in Dubai. When you were there, did you see any churches? Did you run into anybody else who was Christian?
We did not run into anyone who we knew was Christian. There are a lot of churches in Dubai, and you'll find this interesting. I didn't know this from going there, but I knew this from reading about it. But Dubai will actually, if you want to build a church in Dubai, you go to the leader of the local government, you ask for permission, which I imagine means that you make nice to him and show him you're not trying to overturn his government or anything like that. You got to tell him, look, we respect what you're doing here. You're making a nice life for people.
Hey, you know what? That would be a good idea for America, to check in with the mosques and make sure that they're not trying to take over here.
Right? That's right. That's a good point.
I mean, I don't think that's all that shocking. You and I realize that Islam is a false religion, but if it is in Dubai, it's almost the state religion, even though
it is the state religion.
So it is a state religion.
Yeah.
And in other countries, it's even more so. But they are simply making sure that you're not going to try and take over and tear down their state religion. Now, here in America, we don't have a state religion, but we do have a level of freedom and liberty that should be protected. And I don't think there's any problem with investigating an imam in a given mosque and trying to make sure that this person is not preaching the overthrow of the American government.
And especially so since we know Muslims and their mosque are funded by countries like Saudi Arabia and the Wahhabi sect that is all about overthrowing our way of life.
Exactly.
Absolutely, we should be doing that. Do you have any ties to the Wahhabis of Saudi Arabia? Yes? Okay, then you can't open a mosque. Sorry. Right?
Yeah, I think that's prudent.
Yeah. So, but listen to this. This is very interesting. You go to the local leader and get his approval eventually to build a church, and they will approve it. And when they approve it, guess what they do? They give you the land. They don't even charge you for it. For a church, they give you the land.
Well, who owns the land in the first place?
The leader owns the land.
Okay.
So he doesn't actually give the land, but he gives them the right to use the land at no charge, which I found fascinating. A Muslim country will actually give a church a right to use land for free, but they do. And there are many churches in Dubai. When I went online to look for churches, I found 12 or 15 churches in Dubai. And
did you happen to go to a service while you were there?
No, we wanted to, and it just turned out the churches that we knew about that were fairly close to us were pretty hard to get to, and we didn't really know how to get to them. And they don't have addresses in Dubai. They don't have like 1314 Main Street because they don't have street names and they don't have building numbers.
So how do you find a place? How do they locate a place?
Well, we stayed in a high-rise apartment complex with 6 buildings, and we would tell the driver the name of the complex, and we would tell him it was in Ajman. And we would say we're going to this complex in Ajman, and if we were in Ajman, sorry, the drivers had no problem finding it. But if we were in Dubai and we wanted to get back to Ajman, they had no idea where this building was. So what they would do, they would drive to Ajman, then they would stop and ask a local cab driver there where it was, and then that driver would tell them, and then they would find it. A crazy system.
So there's no street names and no building numbers.
Right.
Holy crap! Can you imagine? Can you imagine that in New York City?
It was insane. It was insane.
Now, do they have police and fire protection? I would imagine they're a modern country.
Of course.
They have all that.
They have police, and I got to tell you, I found the police to be the least scary people around. The police looked like they were just about to go on siesta at any moment.
Yeah.
I mean, they were walking around with a dazed look in their eyes, like, when can I go to sleep?
Well, how would the reason why I brought up fire protection? How would a fire department find? I guess they just know the same thing. They know the name of the building or the name of a complex.
Right. They know their area.
And the area. Wow. Okay. So now another question popped into my mind.
Wait. How the 911 or whatever dispatcher they have there, how the dispatcher would know which fire department to call when someone says my building's on fire, I have no idea. But as long as they get the call to a fire department that's in that local area, then, they wouldn't have any problem finding it.
Now, do they have bars? Can you go and get a beer or a mixed drink somewhere?
They have bars for non-Emiratis. So if you're not a local native Emirati, you can go to a bar.
But are you prohibited if you are? If you are a citizen?
Yeah, if you're a citizen, you have to have some kind of special license and pay some kind of fees or something. I'm not sure about all the details of that. Citizens can go, but they have to go through some government red tape to be able to do it.
So drinking is definitely frowned upon.
Very frowned upon. In fact, the locals can't walk into a liquor... They have liquor stores. I didn't see any, but apparently in the high tourist areas they have them. But the locals can't go in and just say, I want to buy, a bottle of beer, unless they have the special license that entitles them to do that.
Is that like the medical marijuana here?
I think it is. I read that it's not, completely enforced. So apparently a local can go in and say, here, I'll give you a couple extra Dubai dollars and let me have some beer,
What was the most enjoyable thing about being in Dubai?
Well, honestly, it's hot there. In the summer, their average temperatures are in the 120s.
Yeah, wow.
But it's not only hot, Jimmy, it's not like the American West. It's humid. It's 115 degrees and it's 60% humidity. It's horrible, just horrible. So I have to say the most enjoyable thing was being inside with the air conditioning.
Yeah, that would be my favorite thing, too.
It really was.
What was the least favorite thing about the trip?
Well, just one more thing on your most enjoyable thing.
Okay.
You can't go outside there and just have a blast like you do here, Everything's very subdued, and I kind of likened it to 1950s America, where you had the good and the bad. Like, the good is everything's very clean. You don't see all the crazy homeless people and panhandlers. They wouldn't tolerate that for a minute there. Mm-hmm. They clean those people up and get them off the streets. I don't know how, but, they're not there. You go into a subway there, there's not a speck of... I won't even say there's not graffiti. There's not even a speck of dirt on the subway trains.
Like Disney World.
It's like Disney World. It literally is. And, in New York, you get on a subway train and some crazy panhandler guy comes through, like really pestering people for money and making a big scene about it.
Urinating.
If he wants to, yeah.
I mean, nobody's going to stop him.
No one will stop them. I've seen people do such crazy things on trains here, and no one even looks up.
Yeah, I know.
You know?
I was in a subway once years ago. My family traveled from Connecticut down to New York City when I was there on vacation, and it was a very pleasant trip, and the subway trip was pleasant as well. But I did notice everyone keeps very closely to themselves.
Right, that's right. And on a Dubai subway train, it's spotless, it's clean. Of course, it's brand new, too. But they would not tolerate that kind of thing for a minute. And by the way, did you know, I was stunned to read this, but as I was leaving Dubai, I was in the airport looking at some books in the store, and I picked up a book, and they had a picture of Dubai in 1993, just 20 years ago. There was nothing there. There was nothing. Not a single modern building. Not a single tall building. There was just one little clump of houses somewhere. It looked like maybe 6 city blocks. And that's all that was there. Everything that's in Dubai today, it looks like a mega Manhattan now. Was
20 years. It's been 20 years.
Last 20 years.
That's oil money. That's what has happened there. Were you able to get into the tallest building in the world?
We went by it, and...
What's that? Before we go on, what was that to look like standing beneath it?
Well, I'll describe it like this. You know, we call those buildings skyscrapers.
Yeah.
And all my life I've thought, why do they call it a skyscraper? It doesn't even look like it's near the sky.
Yeah.
This building looks like it's scraping the sky. It's literally it's twice as high as the Empire State Building. It's 3 times higher than most of our regular so-called skyscrapers.
I want to say that again. I want people to catch.
It's amazing. It sticks up so much farther than every other building. It's amazing.
I want people to catch that. It's twice as high.
Yeah.
As the Empire State Building.
It's 2,700 feet high, which would be about 270 stories. It's much higher than the new World Trade Center they just built, and it's more than half a mile high.
Now, how can it be that you would be there? I guess is it kind of difficult to get the elevator and go all the way up to the top?
Well, look, we saw it kind of up close. We were maybe 8 or 10 blocks away. You have to be 8 or 10 blocks away to see the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it was just too far. I was like, I don't want to walk over there. Forget it. We've seen it from the outside.
At 120 degrees and 60% humidity.
Exactly.
Screw it.
Exactly.
Boy, I tell you, that must be something to see, though.
It's actually, the farther you get away from it, the more dramatic it becomes, because you really see it in relation to other buildings, and you just stand there and look at it and think, wow, that thing is tall.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
So when you were getting ready to leave, obviously, it was a point in time when you didn't want to leave because of the company you were with.
Right.
But did you both leave on the same day, or did she get on a plane before you? How did that work out? Were you able to say goodbye adequately?
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of a nightmare. Her flight was exactly 12 hours before mine. So, we all went to the airport together, and then I just sat in the airport for 12 hours waiting for my flight. But...
Well,
we were able to say goodbye adequately. And, she checked in at the counter for a flight going to Pakistan. So all the people in the line for this counter were from Pakistan. And I got to tell you, I don't want to go to Pakistan.
Well, when you're talking about this and I'm putting myself in your shoes, I would much prefer for her to leave first. I would feel bad leaving first and leaving her alone in the airport.
Yeah, she would have been fine in the airport, but I'm glad she got to go first, and I was the one who had to wait. There was no problem.
So now you're on, what airline did you fly home?
Emirates Airlines.
And how did you find them? How did they treat you? I would imagine really well.
Well, it's the official airline of the United Arab Emirates, and they had the best price for a direct flight from New York.
How long is that flight?
Oh, God. It was 12 and a half hours going over and 13 and a half coming back.
Oh, man, I didn't realize it was, wow, that's a long trip.
Yeah, it's about as far around the world as you can go without coming back from the other direction.
Yeah, and was the service there good? They treat you really nice, I would suppose.
Yeah, the service on the airline, I mean, the weird thing was, flying over, the stewardesses, I'm sorry I said that, Jimmy. I said stewardesses. I apologize. The flight attendants.
One thing about my show is we're always PC.
I know, and I don't want to mess up your reputation here. So I apologize. That was not endorsed by Jimmy.
All right.
I said that. He had no idea that was coming, and I apologize. But, they were nice, but in kind of in a real fake kind of way. It was like, we're being paid to be nice, so we'll smile. There was no warmth at all. And that's what I noticed on the whole trip there. There was no warmth from anybody. In fact, in Dubai, nobody smiles. We went to a dry cleaner's one day where she dropped off a dress, and we came back later in the afternoon to pick it up. The guy walks over, he goes, just looked at us and said, And then he turned around, went back, got her dress, gave it to her. No hello, no good to see you again, no how are you, no, oh, you came to get your dress, I'll get it for you. Nothing, no thank you, no nothing. I mean, the whole place was like that the whole time we were there.
Why do you suppose that is?
I think it's because of Islam. I think it's just, they don't have any real joy in life because they're not following a true religion. Christ brings us a real joy that we have inside, and I think, that's rubbed off on Americans over the years, and even though we're losing our Christianity, we still retain some of those benefits that we had when more people were Christians here.
Sure, and the people who are not Christians have that same kind of thing. I liken it to something that a pastor on television said recently that really made an impression on me, and that is that even the people who, in the United States, where there is a lot of Christianity, even the people who are not Christian, who even proclaim to be atheists, benefit by having Christians around.
Absolutely right. That's absolutely right.
And so in a place like Islam, there aren't enough Christians to have that effect. And so when you're not feeling that warmth, I didn't think about this until you said it, but I think you make a lot of sense that the people who are not feeling they're not getting the love of God at all.
Right.
And so why should there be any warmth emanating from them?
That's right. That's exactly right. Look, it's the same as America would be if our heritage was an atheist heritage. It would be exactly the same.
Yeah.
There would be no difference. And the more we go in that direction, the more like that it's going to become.
That's why we have to stand up for our faith. And I notice you do that on your Facebook page. I want to ask you, as we wind up here, when you got off the plane back in New York, was there an amount of relief or joy to be back home?
I was so happy to be back home. The first thing I noticed when I was going through customs and getting my passport looked at, the guy actually smiled and he said, "Welcome home."
Oh, God, that had to feel good.
That felt great. And the other great benefit was...
It's like you want to give the guy a big hug.
Yeah, I did. I said, "It's so nice to see you smile." And he looked at me and was like, "What?"
Unless you've been there, you wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know. And the other great benefit to returning home was it was 50 degrees here, not 100. So
yeah,
that was good. But just to walk out and have the freedom, I got on an elevator coming out of the airport, going down into a subway station. And the elevator was crowded, and there were two couples on the elevator, and one guy just leaned over and kissed his girlfriend or wife on the top of her head. And no one even noticed except me. And the only reason I noticed is I had just been in a place where if you did that, they might take you off to jail.
Now, you mentioned something when we were sending emails back and forth about how when you were in Dubai and you heard these calls to prayer, and you were talking about what President Barack Obama has said about how beautiful that is. I want you to talk a little bit. I want you to talk a little bit about that.
I thought about that when I was there. I thought about him saying that, and I thought only a person whose heart is turned completely against God could think that call was beautiful, because that is a call to pray to Satan.
It is. It's a completely false religion, and so the call to prayer is worshiping the enemy.
That's right.
It just is.
Exactly right. And whether we worship the enemy through our secularism and pretending there is no God, or they worship the enemy through, worshiping a false God, it's the same thing. It doesn't matter. To God, it's all the same. It's against him. But yeah, it was like, how could anyone think this call to pray to Satan is beautiful? It's the most hideous sound I ever heard in my life.
And that's coming from a Christian standpoint. Obviously, if you were an agnostic, it might not hit you as hard. But at the same time, even an agnostic, I would think, might not hear this at any time, day or night, as being a beautiful sound. And after you said that, I pondered whether or not Obama could be Muslim. And if I was in Vegas and I was going to put $100 down on whether or not Obama is Muslim, I would have to put the $100 on that he is. I don't know that he is. I think that it's quite possible that he has a background that makes him feel as though he has some kind of responsibility for Muslims because of the way he was raised and the people he was raised by. But then again, he could very well be Muslim and have kept it to himself for a specific reason. There's no way to tell for sure, but that's the bet I would make.
Well, honestly, I don't think he's any more Muslim than he is Christian. I honestly think he's an atheist. I don't think he believes in any God. But he grew up with a Islamic background. His father was Islamic. His stepdad was Islamic. His first years were in Indonesia, the largest Muslim country in the world. So surely he has sympathies to Islam, and he has an Islamic cultural worldview, and he has an Islamic mixed with a Marxist worldview, and there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and his Marxism and socialism really does fit an atheistic worldview.
Yeah, it does. And you were talking about whether an agnostic would find the call to prayer to be a beautiful sound. I mean, in and of itself, it's not a hideous sound. If it were a call to prayer to the Christian God, it would be a fine sound. There's nothing wrong with the actual music. But I would hope that an agnostic would think, wow, this is the government forcing a religion down my throat.
Yeah.
And you can't complain about it. You can't say, hey, I don't want that coming into my apartment at 4 o'clock in the morning. It wakes me up. You can't say that there, So I think that's probably how an agnostic might feel about it.
Well, I'm out of time here. I want to thank you, Jonathan, for coming on the show. The website is freedomtorch.com. And you know what? We're going to have to find other topics to talk about and get together and do this again. I thought this was great.
Well, I did too. I enjoyed it, Jimmy, and we've been talking about it a long time. I'm glad we finally got to do it.
Me too. Thank you, Jonathan. From the left coast, Jimmy Z. Bye-bye for now.
The Jimmy Z Show.
Run to the hills if you want to. Wish I could go. I wish I could go. If I stayed back in the cave I came from, I saw shadows of the soul.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We have good questions on the show like...
Mr. Obama, sir, I have just a quick question, if I can. I was wondering, just where the hell is your birth certificate?
Well, here it is Monday, Veterans Day in America. Kind of a sad day for me, Veterans Day and Memorial Day in May. Kind of brings back some memories of not too good times for Gary Gatehouse and millions of other guys that marched off the war way back there in Vietnam. I can still remember that day when I left my homeland. And I got on that plane. I could look back out the window of that plane, and folks, I could see my missus, my wife, a bride of 1 year, standing on the tarmac waving goodbye to me. 8 months, 3 weeks, and days pregnant. And it just tore at my heart. I can remember like it was yesterday. I can still see her standing there in her little blue jacket and her checkered maternity blouse, along with my father and mother and father-in-law, my brothers, waving goodbye to me as I got on that big bird and headed west to Travis Air Force Base out there, San Francisco way. I can remember when I landed there and caught the cab out to the base at the staging area, and I met all my buddies that had been issued orders to ship out to Vietnam. Hell, we didn't know where we was going. We knew we were going to Vietnam, but that's as far as we knew. We knew the site, but we didn't know what it looked like. Well, you guys and gals that have been through that, you know what I'm talking about. They sent us to the Philippines for 2.5 weeks of combat training, jungle training. Then loaded us up on another big old bird and shipped our butts to Tan Son Nhut Air Force Base. That's down in the southern part of Vietnam. From there we got our indoctrination on what was going down inside the borders of South Vietnam. We spent 2 days there in the transit quarters, and then we got on another bird, a C-130, and winged our way north all the way to I Corps to an air base called Da Nang Air Base. And we all loaded at the back side of that C-130 and came down on the tarmac, and there was 2 colonels standing there welcoming us to Vietnam, Da Nang. And they had an easel there, and one of them had a pointer. And on that easel it showed Da Nang, Vietnam. And it showed the mountains. And it showed the China Sea. And I can remember that colonel pointing there with this big X, and he says, "This is where you're at. This is where you're staging from right here." All of that area up there that we got marked in red lines, the North Vietnamese own that. The Viet Cong, an arm of the North Vietnamese Army, and the Communist Party of North Vietnam, they're there as well. You're within 3 clicks of Viet Cong outpost. In other words, gentlemen, you're surrounded. Now, that didn't go too well with us. But we didn't have time to think about it. They loaded us up on 2.5 trucks, went over and got our weapons issued, took us out about 2.5 clicks out on a dirt road, an old dirt road, and there was a bunch of old dusty tents. And that was going to be my home, my staging area for the next 12 months. And I'm not going to get into all the ins and outs and ups and downs and thises and that's that went on that 12 months I was there. Back then we couldn't communicate via cell phone or computer. We communicated by writing letters back and forth to our loved ones. And I remember they came in and said, one of the perks of being in combat over here is you don't have to put a stamp up there on that envelope. Just write free, and the government's going to take care of you. So while we were over there, we could send our letters back to their loved ones, and they would go free. And that was one of the perks, plus $60 a month combat pay. $60 a month. And I remember I was there about 2.5 weeks at the most, and a Red Cross guy come walking down the little path where my tent was. And over there, ladies and gentlemen, anytime you seen a Red Cross guy coming, you just kind of hoped he didn't walk up to you, because most of the time it meant bad luck or bad news. Somebody in your family, somebody that you knew was either ill or died or got killed or something back in the homeland. And he kept walking and walking, and he walked past some other guys, and he walked up to me. And I said, yes. He says, are you Gary Gatehouse, Sergeant Gary Gatehouse? And I said, yes, I am. He says, I have some news for you. You're the father of a baby girl. And I didn't know what to say. But it was good news. It was good news. My wife had given birth to our daughter, Kelly Jo. And she sent some pictures. And a couple of weeks after that, I got some pictures of Kelly and my wife. And I was so proud. And I told myself, Gary, Bud, you have got to do everything you can to keep yourself in one piece to get back so you can see your daughter and your wife. And I prayed to God every day that He would watch over me. Some of my friends got killed, but I made it without a scratch. I remember the day I got on that plane to go home. We took the mortuary flight from Da Nang, and we flew all around South Vietnam picking up bodies of Marines and Army personnel, etc., that had been killed in action. In body bags at that time, a lot of them were still clear. You could still see the guys in there in their uniforms, etc. And they were taking them to Saigon for embalming and processing and cleaning up. And we flew around all over South Vietnam picking these guys up. And when we landed in Tan Son Nhut Air Base, we all knew that we were just about ready to leave Vietnam and head home. We spent 3 days there in transit tents getting processed out. And ladies and gentlemen, not 5 hours after I had left Vietnam, the very place that I was in, the stage to catch the plane out, got hit by mortar fire. God was watching over me. He wanted me back to take care of my wife and my daughter. And I'll never forget when I landed and I went home. My wife was living in a little one-bedroom apartment about 2 blocks from her father-in-law. And my little brother-in-law, he was 11 years old at the time. My wife's brother was living with her, helping her out. And I remember landing and catching a cab and going up to that door and knocking on the door at 3 o'clock in the morning. It was the best, one of the best moments in my life. And I know there's a lot of guys and gals that have lived through the same type of stuff I'm telling you right now. But there's a lot of men and women that never came back. Never had the opportunity to hold their sons or daughters, their little kids in their arms again, or their moms and dads, their sisters or brothers or their wives. And that's the people I remember most. I can still see my buddies' faces, the ones I lost. They're still young guys. They're still smiling and young in my mind. I remember them. And I say a prayer for all you guys and your families, veterans from past wars, all you young people that are fighting to keep our country free. In Afghanistan, I've been there. I know what it's like. Pakistan, I've been there. All you folks that carry the flag, standing tall. Well, someday when you leave the military, the Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard, you'll be called veterans. You'll be called veterans. And you will sit down as you get older, and you won't help it. You won't be able to help it. You'll reflect back on the days when you wore the uniform, on the days when you were laying face down in dirt, mud, whatever. Bullets zinging over your head. You'll remember your buddies that you lost on the battlefield. You'll be just like me. And millions of other veterans of all the wars our country has fought since the Revolutionary War. Those men were veterans too. We seem to tend not to connect them as veterans. But they were. They were just as much veterans as we are. They fought the most powerful army and navy in the world. The British Army and Navy at that time, and they defeated them, but they left a lot of men on the battlefield. They left a lot of their families unattached with no income. One of my ancestors, John Hart, a signer of the Declaration of Independence of the United States of America. From that day forward, after he signed that paper, he was harassed. He lost his farm in New Jersey. His family was disenfranchised from him, like many other men, and yes, women too, that stood up to tyranny and took, like I said, the most powerful army and navy in the world at that time. They took them on and defeated them. And it wasn't because they had better weapons or better generals or whatever. It's because they had the desire to be free. They had the desire to establish a world in which their families and future families could live as free individuals without the tyranny of a government on the other side of the ocean coming down on their throats every time they turned around. These men were some very brave individuals, our forefathers, our founding fathers. And from that point on till this day in America, that line has not been broken. From the veterans of the Revolutionary War to the veterans of the war on terrorism today, these young men and women you see in Walmart or Dairy Queen or anywhere you go wearing their battle dress uniforms or BDUs or their dress uniforms, I'd walk up to them. Walk up to them and pat them on the back. Because you see, most Americans today are not required to go in the military. That ended in 1973. Most Americans today don't know what it's like to even be in the military. Less than 1% of Americans actually wear the uniforms of our military services and protect us, our children, our homeland. Less than 1%. Some of these individuals are pulling 3 and 4 and 5 combat tours. So when you see one, you can thank your lucky stars that he's there doing a job that maybe your son that you never encouraged to put the uniform on to protect his homeland, or your daughter, whatever. You can thank your lucky stars there is somebody there wearing a uniform carrying your water and the majority of the American people's water. Protecting us. Veterans. All wars. Veterans of the United States of America. And you folks over in England, and you folks in New Zealand and in Australia and Canada, today, this is not your Veterans Day, but you have veterans too. I've served with some of your men in Vietnam. Great people. When your Veterans Day comes around, by God, you make sure you honor them. And when you see a bloke in the military with his uniform on, or a Canadian or an Australian or a New Zealander, you do like I do. Go up and thank them for protecting you. Thank them. Buy them some fish and chips. Buy them a pint, whatever. Those folks need to be honored as much as we possibly can. Because you see, ladies and gentlemen, when an individual goes into that recruiting station and raises his right hand and swears on the Bible, swears an oath of allegiance to the United States of America, that he will lay his life on the line and make the ultimate sacrifice for the protection of the motherland, why hell, there isn't another individual or individuals in the world that are more of a hero than they are. They are truly heroes in every sense of the word. Please thank them. Say prayers for them and their families. This is Gary Gatehouse, and I'll be back after a few short messages. My brother Jim, a Vietnam veteran, passed away recently. I love you, Jim. And I miss you. God bless our troops. God bless all free countries' troops and their families. Please say prayers for them. Get down on your knees and say a prayer for those that stand between us and those that would want to harm us, our militaries.
Servicemen and women are coming home bearing the physical and emotional wounds of war. The trauma of combat is magnified by the loss of buddies, separation from loved ones, and the stress of multiple extended deployments. Anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and substance abuse often appear after the excitement of homecoming subsides. War wears on families as well. Seeking help is a sign of strength. Visit healthyminds.org to learn more about military mental health from the American Psychiatric Association.
This is a big salute from the Gary Gatehouse radio show to all our armed forces, past and present, you veterans out there. God bless every one of you. Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, and the Coast Guard.
Constitutional Patriot Radio proudly presents The Gary Gatehouse Show, Getting After Lefty. Tune in weekdays.
You're listening to the Gary Gatehouse radio show, Getting After Lefty. And first of all, I would like to thank all of you individuals that are involved with, producers, etc., that are involved with Constitutional Patriot Radio, whether you be in England or here in the United States. I appreciate you bringing my show on board and the great reception I have received from y'all, and it's heartfelt, believe me, that I have finally found a group of people that are hell-bent on taking our country back and using the media of the World Wide Web to help spread the word of truth, to spread the word of conservatism, and to spread the word to countries worldwide, those countries that are free and those countries that have individuals housed in them that wish they were free and are trying everything they can to become a country of free people. Whether you be in China, Vietnam, wherever. We folks here at the Gary Gatehouse Show, we link arms with you, as do other countries in Western Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Canada. We link arms, and we will strive to get the word out to all freedom-loving people, regardless of where you're at. And we will do it, as I say, my motto is on my show, we speak the truth, we broadcast the truth, regardless of the consequences. And we do it each and every day here on CPR Radio. Thanks again, guys, at CPR Radio. This is Gary Gatehouse, and I really appreciate it. We'll be back after a few short messages.
Hi, I'm Paulette Carlson. Veterans Against Drugs is a united effort working with the Vietnam Veterans of America and local anti-drug programs, the clergy, law enforcement, and educators to find ways to reduce the effects of drugs and violence on our youth. Remember the word DRUGS. Don't ruin useful gifts stupidly. America is depending on its youth for the future and depending on you to support Veterans Against Drugs. Please contact us at VVA.org.
Good morning, Vietnam! This is Gary Gatehouse, host of the Getting After Lefty show. Welcome home, vets, all vets. Make sure you listen to the Getting After Lefty show every Wednesday and Friday, shining the light of truth on the liberal left. You're listening to the Gary Gatehouse Radio Show on the CPR Radio Network. We'll be back. We'll be back after the Phyllis Schlafly Report. Don't you go away.
This is the Phyllis Schlafly Report. Mrs. Schlafly is a constitutional attorney, conservative icon, and the author of more than 20 books, including The Supremacists, Turbo Reader, and the revealing new book, The Flip Side of Feminism. And now, here's the president of Eagle Forum, Phyllis Schlafly.
There are many good reasons for Congress to defund Obamacare, but one surely is the sneaky, underhanded plan to give Obamacare jobs to foreigners instead of to our own citizens. Rank this with one of Obama's gross betrayals of the young people who voted for him. Obamacare allows states to outsource some of the well-paying jobs in science and technology to foreigners who are brought into our country on H-1B visas. While most media coverage about Obamacare has been about the exchanges, but federal tax dollars pay up to 90% of the cost to upgrade state Medicaid management information systems, and healthcare has become a very important market for outsourcing. For example, Illinois Governor Patrick Quinn granted one of the largest contracts to Cognizant Technology, one of the top corporations using H-1B visas, and he's going to outsource jobs to contractors from India. This contract awarded a $71 million contract that will pay salaries of up to $256,000 per year per position, plus a $200,000 slush fund for travel. After all, it's expensive to travel from India to Springfield, Illinois. This contract is to upgrade Illinois' Medicaid systems to meet the requirements of Obamacare. Cognizant filed paperwork with the U.S. Department of Labor to hire 60 senior analysts on H-1B visas at the annual pay rate of $76,000. Cognizant is busy recruiting consultants, coders, architects, medical billing specialists, and systems programmers. Cognizant's consulting fees of up to $256,000 per person per year will replace senior American managers.
This has been the Phyllis Schlafly Report from Eagle Forum. Chances are you or someone you care about is unemployed or underemployed. At eagleforum.org, in a blog conversation with Phyllis Schlafly, we're weighing the causes and solutions of this national crisis. One thing is certain, more government spending is not the answer. Join the blog at eagleforum.org. Thanks for listening, and join us next time for the Phyllis Schlafly Report.
You know, I want to send a warning out to all you Christian parents out there. I don't care if you live in England or New Zealand, the United States of America, Canada, wherever. All you Christian parents out there. I want you to take time out to listen to what I have to say here, please. And really, this pertains to American schools, but it could also tie into schools in Europe. If you enroll your kids in today's public schools, all you parents need to know the following things. Your children who go to government-sponsored schools, public schools, today are receiving a third-rate education. They are. And if you don't believe it, I want to present you with just a flavor of the research that shows exactly this to be true. The Washington Post. The Washington Post. Now, that's not really a conservative outfit there, the Washington Post. Recently reported United States 15-year-olds trailed their peers from many industrialized countries. The average science score of a United States student lagged behind those in 16 out of 30 countries in the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. The United States students were further behind in math and trailing their counterparts in 23 countries. Public school children are also being indoctrinated to embrace a humanist, socialist worldview. As students are continually being dumbed down here in America's classrooms, they're being shaped to believe less like God-fearing Christians. They're taking that out of them, folks. The public schools, ran by the National Education Association, are ripping that out of your child's mind and presenting them with something other than what you teach at home as far as the Christian religion or what you believe in. Now, a 20-year study that involved approximately 60 students who, yes, came from Christian families, showed that nearly 9 out of 10 youth from Christian homes attending public schools are consistently abandoning the Christian worldview in favor of humanistic socialist worldview. Now, parents, this would mean that the students have intentionally rejected the basic tenets of biblical theism in favor of basic tenets of humanism and socialism. They have abandoned their Christian beliefs because they have been taught humanistic and socialist ideology or the way to look at the way the world is today. They have thrown out, parents, your children, they have thrown out all the ideas that you have taught at home about the Christian religion, your beliefs. It is being extracted from your children on a daily basis, Monday through Friday. Now, there have been reports 75% of public school American youth brought up in Christian households disown their Christian faith by their first year of college. First year of college. They have thrown their Christian beliefs out the window. Your child has a dramatically greater chance of being subject to detrimental social experiences if they attend a public school here in the United States. A congressional report released in the year 2007 estimated that 1 out of every 10 children are subject to sexual misconduct by an employee of a school, sometimes between kindergarten and the 12th grade, and many abusers have several victims, and most get away with it. A 2007 report revealed that about 1 out of every 3 United States high school students see drug dealing, illegal drug use, or students high or drunk at least once a week on their school grounds, on their school campus. Reports in 2005 showed an increase in bullying. In fact, 54% of students were harassed verbally and 51% socially were excluded or ostracized. Now, we all know that bullying is a really big deal in the United States, all the way up to the National Football League, where a 330-pound guy, 6'5", is complaining and wringing his hands that he's being bullied. There have always been bullies. On the school ground, in the workplace, always. And when I was a young guy growing up, I didn't dare go home to my father and tell him that Joe Blow down the streets beat me up and taking my lunch money. Because you know what he'd tell me? Gary, you get your ass down there, and you fight him tooth and nail until one of you walk away, and when you come home bloodied and beat up and your clothes ripped apart, well, by God, I'll buy you some new clothes, but at least I know you're standing up for yourself. That's old school. That's the way it was back in the 50s and early 60s. But we've got away from that here in the United States. Now we come to the rescue of every little nosebleed, skin nose, scrape finger. And these kids come home crying and their parents march off, and they just, I understand that if a bully gets to the point where he's physically abusing somebody day after day, and that person just doesn't have the physical strength or the wherewithal to take up for himself or herself, I can understand that part of bullying. But I can't understand it when kids today are coddled and held close to the chest and awarded a trophy even if though they were losers on their team, whatever. It's tearing our kids and our infrastructure as social human beings in this United States apart. Now, when we're talking about education in America, in the public schools, we're not just talking about reading, writing, and arithmetic. Oh no, there's a whole litany of other things involved with the curriculums of those that the National Education Association teaches from in our public school system nationwide, coast to coast, north to south. They don't only teach reading, writing, and arithmetic, and even those school books are riddled with socialist ideas and ideology blended in to a simple math test or book. No, there's sensitivity training, there's sexual education training, there's mental awareness training, you name it, there's all kinds of training. It's not training, it's indoctrination. And we folks that homeschool our children, I don't know if that's such a big thing in England or in all the other Western European countries. I don't know if homeschooling is something that a lot of individuals do. Some people do, or it's just not done. But here in America, we folks that can do it, because you see here now economic times are so bad that both the man and the woman has to work just to keep their head above water, just to keep from sinking from the economic woes that have been leveled on them by this Obama administration, regime, that it's almost impossible to homeschool your children. But some people, some families work it out. Some people, some families figure out a way to do it. The best education? The home-educated child typically scores 15 to 30 percentile points above public school students on standardized academic achievement tests. 15 to 30% higher. Why is that? Why? Because they're in a small environment where there's only them and their maybe a brother or sister with them, that the mom or dad that are teaching these children, home educating them, has more time to devote to those 2 or 3 kids or however many's in the family. And they're not teaching them all this BS that is being rammed down our children's throats in public school. The best social environment, the home educated are doing well. Typically above average on measures of social, emotional, and psychological development. Now, research measures include peer interaction, self-concept, leadership skills, family cohesion, participation in community service, and self-esteem, which always is a biggie, self-esteem. It seems like in America today, the girls have finally caught on to self-esteem, and they're standing head and shoulders above the American male of the same age levels. It seems like the American male today, the young American male, is in the same boat that our young ladies and young girls were in back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Lack of self-esteem. And all of us that pay attention know why the American male is in such a mess. Such a freaking mess. Now, you know, spiritual training, you don't get it in public schools. You do not get it. Homeschooled youth, yes, they do get it. When they come from families that believe in Jesus Christ and believe in the Christian way of life, they get their spiritual training. Now, I know there are doubters out there regarding one or more of these positive assertions about homeschooling, but those are the facts, folks. I encourage you to investigate it yourself if you don't believe Gary Gatehouse. Go out and turn the pages, get on the internet, and investigate it yourself. Now, before we go to break, allow me to help you out with one category, which appears to be the strongest objection to homeschooling: proper socialization. Now, studies showed that home-educated children are doing very well in this category. For instance, the Discovery Institute released a report on homeschooling written by senior fellow Dr. Patricia Lines. She described several controlled studies comparing the social skills of homeschoolers and non-homeschoolers. The homeschoolers scored as well adjusted. The homeschool kids demonstrated fewer behavioral problems, Dr. Lines concluded. There is no basis to question the social development of homeschool children, period. But some out there, they're not convinced of what I just said. Well, then consider this. The research done by Drs. Thomas Smedley, who found that homeschoolers have superior socialization skills. Home learners ranked in the 84th percentile compared to public school students who were drastically lower, all the way down to the 23rd percentile. Now, that's saying something. That's something you can hang your hat on. You know, it is easy to see that keeping your kids, your children in public schools is in fact impairs your child's academically, socially, and for Christian parents, most importantly, spiritually. This is why the soon-to-be released documentary Indoctrination is so critical, not only for the church in America, but for our nation's future as well. Children that are being homeschooled are exposed to a better quality education, mentally, and spiritually. And like I said, if there's any way you can homeschool your kids and get them the correct education, the good education, and turn them out as good students, do it. Do it. It's one thing that we do that later down the road, when you see your little son or daughter grow up and be well-adjusted, educated men and women, young men and women, you know that you played a big part in that. by self-school. Self-schooling your kids. But folks, just remember one thing. If there is any way to pull your children out of public schools, do it. They are being indoctrinated by secularist, morally bankrupt teachers. Not all, but I venture to say the majority are. Homeschool them. If you can't afford it, put them in a Christian school. Your children are under attack on a daily basis while they're inside that classroom, inside that schoolhouse. And you as parents are under attack by those teachers standing in front of your kids. They are attacking your morals, your Christian faith, by the very people that claim to be teachers, who are in fact morally bankrupt, socialist, left-wing indoctrinators. Get your children out of public school, if you can, before it's too late. We'll be back after a few short messages.
80.
30. 50.
Every mile brings us closer.
25.
Every mile in a city near you.
75.
Help us stop diabetes.
100.
Join the Tour de Cure.
60.
Register to ride.
36.
Or sponsor a rider.
50.
Call 1-888-DIABETES or visit us online at diabetes.org/tour. How many miles will you ride?
25.
Hey, how the hell are you? Welcome to Jack in the Box. I'm Jack, and I'll be happy to fill your order, if you know what I mean.
I'd like a Jack burger and a large fries.
Sorry, pal, we're cleaning the grease fryer. We don't have any French fries today.
Oh, okay. Then just give me a small order of fries, please.
Look, Chief, maybe you didn't hear me. I said we don't have any fries today, so how about something else?
Oh, okay. Then just give me an order of fries.
Listen up, pal. Who put the straw in strawberry?
Nature did.
That's right, nature did. Who put the ape in apricot?
Nature did.
That's right, nature did. Now listen carefully. Who put the freak in French fries?
There ain't no freak in French fries.
That's what I've been trying to tell you, butt breath. There ain't no freak in French fries. Now get out of my sight before I shove your teeth so far down your throat you'll have to sit on a Jack burger to eat it. Oh, have a nice day.
The Getting After Lefty Show with your host, Gary Gatehouse. Gary rides herd on the silver-tongued devil from the south side of Chicago, better known as Barack Hussein Obama Jr., sometimes called Barry. Gary Gatehouse, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 4 p.m. CST. Make sure you're up there. Listen to what Gary has to say.
You are on the road, must have a code that you can live by, and so become yourself, because the past is just a goodbye. Teach your children well, their father's hell did slowly go by, and feed them on your dreams, the one they picked, the one you know by.
Teach your children well.
Don't you ever.
That song has a lot to say. It really does, ladies and gentlemen. If you listen to the words, let them feed on your dreams. And know they love you. That's the biggest payback a parent can get, is to know his kids love him. Know his kids, mom knows their kids love him. And when you raise your kids and your children in an environment of love, an environment of understanding, an environment of rules, an environment where they have to understand responsibility for themselves and the people around them, and responsibility for the things that they have to learn, their chores, whatever. And you're going to turn out some pretty good kids. Now, I reflect back on my life when I was raised in the 50s. My father was a hard individual. He grew up during the Depression. He fought in World War II along with his brothers and uncles. They came back in, and as we say down here in Texas, they didn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. But they worked, and they toiled, and they built a better life for me and my brothers and sisters and my mom. My father worked his backside off, sometimes working 2 and 3 jobs. We hardly ever seen him. But when we did, he was there for us. If I played in a baseball game, he made every effort in the world to find a way to at least get a couple innings in when I was pitching baseball, whatever. On the other hand, my mother was a nurturing, loving individual that raised us children to appreciate what we had, which wasn't much, but to never complain. Never to complain. My mom and dad didn't have much, like I said, but I never heard them complain, ever. I never heard them complain about what somebody else had down the road. I never heard them complain that somebody else down the road had this better and that better. I guess they didn't have the time, or they were just good people, and they just kept on trucking. And we kids grew up to appreciate nature. We grew up as Christians. We grew up as people who respected our elders. Well, I remember when I was a little kid, I would go to my grandmother's house. And sometimes it would be a family gathering where my grandmother and grandfather's children, my aunts and uncles, would be there, and their children, and my mom and dad, and me and my brothers and sisters, and my grandmother and grandfather. He was a barber, and she was a mom, a stay-at-home mom. They would cook up a big Sunday dinner and pies and cakes, and just a Sunday dinner, not anything special. And we would all get together. And I remember sitting in the living room thinking I was a big dude because I was in there with all the big guys, the parents, the males of the families. And they would all be talking about what they were doing on their jobs or whatever. And if a woman came in, my grandmother, my mom, or one of my aunts would come into the room, every man that was sitting down would stand up in respect for her. And if one of the kids didn't get stood up, one of the male kids didn't get stood up, when the woman come in, well, they got a little boot in the butt and then told to stand up. And after the lady left the room, my aunts or my mom or my grandmother, some male in there would explain to that kid why you should stand up and out of respect for those women. They work hard, they would be told. They work hard every day, mending your clothes, washing your clothes, cooking your food, cleaning your house, and giving you love every day. That's all missing today. It's all gone by the wayside. We don't have time as families to even practice any iota of that. We're all going here and going there, and we never hardly ever get together as a family. We never sit down to dinner anymore, most of us. We're too busy texting on our damn cell phones, too busy watching some freaking TV reality show that we don't have time for each other. And one of the tenets, one of the building blocks of American society, and I know it is in Europe as well, is respect for your elders. It is flat gone. I was at a restaurant with my wife, my daughter and her husband, and my 2 grandchildren, not more than a month ago, sitting down to have a nice meal, and there were some people a couple of tables over that were sitting there using the F word and every damn word you can think of, like it was just common everyday discussion words. And they didn't care who was there. Young kids, little kids, big kids, moms and dads, they didn't care. It didn't bother them. I remember when I was a kid, I played basketball one night and I made a basket. I was like 9 years old. And now some of the big guys there said, "Man, you are a lucky bastard." And I went home at the kitchen table. I didn't know what they meant. And I sit down at the table, and my father always said, "Okay, what did you guys do at school today? What did you do in play?" and all that. And everybody took their turn. When it came around to me, he said, "Gary, what did you do today?" And I said, "I played some basketball, and I made a basket from 10 feet out, and I'm a lucky bastard." Well, my dad said, "Hey, Gary, let's go in the next room here." He took me in my mom and dad's bedroom, and he set me on the bed, and he grabbed me by the shirt, and he said, "Listen, young man, you don't sit at the kitchen table and use words like that around your mother or your sister." And he said, "I'm going to tell you what that word means. And it's an insult to women, and it's an insult to men. So don't use it anymore. You understand?" And I told him, "Yes, sir," and that was the end of that. When I was growing up, I never heard the F word muttered by anybody in my family or extended family, ever. I never heard anybody use any word against God. I never did, and that's the honest truth. And now we have got people that they've got the most filthy mouths in the world, and they're out there spewing all of that out for everybody to hear, and they don't care. They flat don't care. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about America. I don't know how it is in your country. Maybe it's like this, I don't know. But the respect for each other in my country has gone. The respect for individuals and individuals' selves are gone. People are running around like they're bouncing off walls, like they're in some insane asylum or something over here. They just don't have it together anymore. They have too much, they expect too much, and they want it right now, and if they don't get it, they start whining and crying. And that is not the way America used to be. We used to be rugged individuals that if you got knocked down, you got back up and by God got back in the fight. That's not that way anymore. Most people today run and hide under their desks, go hide in another room. They don't want to be involved. They're afraid they're going to be called a racist. They're afraid they're going to be called to do something that's politically incorrect, and they just fade away, melt down into their boots. And it's wrong. It's wrong. You can't run a country. You cannot be Americans. You cannot be a society that acts like that. That's the way Rome ended up, on the trash heap of has-been countries, because they went that way. They lost all touch with what Rome was all about. And that's what America is doing today. It is being ripped out of our children's head at school. The history of America, if it's not right, they make it politically correct, so people that were even involved in that history are injected into it to make everything just hunky-dory for women, men, homosexuals, whatever. That's just the way America is today. We are getting beat daily about the head from individuals on the left and the right who tell us you can't say this, you can't do that because you're going to offend somebody. Well, this is one individual that was I'm going to say what I want to say. And if it offends somebody, that is too bad. You can call me down, you can send me an email, you can do whatever you want. But Gary Gatehouse is going to say, I'm going to use my First Amendment, and I'm going to say what I darn well want to say. And I'm not going to be drug into this politically correct browbeating that most Americans are today. Until that time comes when they got me nailed up against a wall somewhere and a gun against my head, then that is That is the way it's going to go with Gary Gatehouse. I'll just go out that way because you're not going to steal my freedoms away from me. You're not going to rip them out of me or my children or my grandchildren or my daughters and sons. You're just not going to do it. And I wish the hell more Americans felt that way. I know there's a lot of us. I know there's a lot of us at CPR that feel that way. But by gosh, we're a small fraction, I think, of what the rest of the people in America and probably European countries think. They just think completely different than they did 50 or 60 years ago. It's a different world. This is Gary Gatehouse. I'm sorry I went off on this tangent, this tirade, but I just had to get it off my chest. And I hope you understand it, and I hope some of you maybe even agree with what I'm saying. So until next show, this is Gary Gatehouse saying, I hope you have a great day. Say a prayer for our military and their families. All you folks over in England, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and everybody on the Pacific Rim, whatever. God bless every one of you, and say a prayer for those poor people in the Philippines. I lived there for a while, and those are great people. Say a prayer for them. God loves those folks, and God will help them. Until next show, good day.
You're scaring the kids. They think this world is dying and it's all on their heads. Just what is it that gives you the right to teach all this stuff that just might not be true? Could you just teach them to read? Teach them to write? Statistics show us that you're losing that fight. Make sure they know their math and how the world is all laid out. Instill a love for literature and they'll figure it out. Making me mad. We got kids that can't sleep and kids that can't eat for fear of whom they may deprive. So just stick to the basics, won't you? Give them a chance to be innocent children. It goes by so fast. Their worries will come in soon enough, and you know that. So just stick to the absolute, undisputed facts. Well, the school administration says you stick to our plans. These kids have got to save the world in such a short span. But you're scaring the kids, and you know it's not right. Teach them all this stuff that just might not be true. Might not be true. Hey, what say you?
Talk Radio 860, WGUL.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome. I'm the captain, Matt Bruce, sitting in for Chris Markowski, who is taking a personal day off today. He'll be back tomorrow. He's got things he's got to do, so we're going to do some other things for him in his absence. And we're going to start off by saying, first of all, no big news here. The Bucks lost again. They're 0-6. The Lightning lost. John Cooper's team didn't show up Saturday night. The Boston Bruins beat them. And tonight, The new favorite team for Tampa Bay, the Minnesota Vikings, with Josh Freeman starting at quarterback, will go against the winless New York Giants. We'll see how all of that takes over. Now, if you want to get involved in the action today, the number to call is 877-969-8600. That's 877-969-8600. We want to start out by mentioning the untimely death of Congressman C.W. Bill Young here in the Florida Congressional District number 13. Now, Bill Young is probably the one individual primarily responsible for the growth that has been incurred over at CENTCOM, MacDill Air Force Base, SOCOM, and Special Ops. Now, with all that being said, he will sorely be missed and sadly missed because of the fact that he's been such a friend, and the money that's been pumped into CENTCOM came from primarily Congressman Young. Now, what this is opening up is a special election that's going to happen sooner rather than later, and a couple of very prominent political names have surfaced in the possibility of running. One, a Democrat, Alex Sink, the former gubernatorial candidate and the former chief financial officer here in the state, as well as former St. Petersburg Mayor Rick Baker. They are amongst the names that have been mentioned for this House race. Now, whether or not this is going to happen, I don't know. Whether or not someone else will enter this, I don't know. But I'm just letting you know what the political pundits out there and the political folks that follow this stuff every day of the week are saying. Again, 877-969-8600 if you want to chime in. We are definitely surviving today. I've got my personally autographed copy of the Ultimate Obama Survival Guide here in front of me, How to Survive, Thrive, and Prosper During Obamageddon, written by Wayne Allen Root. And by the way, there's a chapter in here that's got me in there and the things that I've talked about for a number of years, going back to 2007 and 2008, when Barack Obama was then a candidate. Now, I've got a phone number for everybody here in Florida, because your vote should count. And if you're having problems trying to register, because healthcare.gov, the website, I went on it early this morning. I got up way early at dark 30. And I went on the healthcare.gov website. I was able to get on it for a couple of minutes. And then all of a sudden, the website crashed in the middle of the night, about 3 o'clock in the morning. Now, I haven't tried it since I've gotten here in the studio. I will, just to see if it's up and running. But if you're having problems, one of the things they're asking you to do there when you sign up and register for the healthcare.gov website is to register to vote. But for those of you that really want to go to the source here in Florida, namely the Department of State, you can call a toll-free number in Tallahassee, 866-308-6739. I'll repeat that. This is the toll-free number for the Department of State for voting registration in Tallahassee in the state of Florida. It's 866-308-6739. Now, some of the other things we're going to be talking about this morning, besides politics, are what our Congress and what our administration is allowing to go through in terms of foreign aid. Now, Pakistan, their aid was suspended when ties soured after the bin Laden raid, where we went in and killed Osama bin Laden and snatched his body, took it out, and then did what we did. The U.S. now reportedly is going to give $1.6 billion to Pakistan. Now, to that I have one word. Why? Why? If somebody knows the answer, they can give us a call at 877-969-8600, because I certainly am not supporting something like that. And the other thing is, we found out over the weekend, according to the Obama administration, that 476,000 health care applications were filed. Or were they? What was actually done on the website? And you've got to be careful how you use your words, Mr. Obama. Is 476 people signed up with their email addresses and gave their information to get more information about Obamacare. They did not file applications to get the actual insurance coverage. So that's something that's being misreported by our media. And again, why should any of us be surprised? Now, we're going to take a break. And when we come back from our break, I believe we've got a guest on the line, and we will be talking with, I think it's Elizabeth Cuevas Neander, who's running for governor here in the state of Florida. You might want to hear what she has to say. I'm the Captain, Matt Bruce. The number 877-969-8600. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. I'm the Captain, Matt Bruce, sitting in today. Chris Markowski's away on a personal day, and I'm here on the air talking to you. Now, we all know that 75 to 80% wants Congress booted, according to the latest polls that are out there. Obviously, a divided government is a reflection of the voters. And someone here who is going to be running against Rick Scott for governor, I believe on the Republican Party ticket, is a lady well known in Latino circles across the country here, and as well as in Florida. She helped form the Puerto Rican Chamber of Commerce in the area that we serve. Her name is Elizabeth Cuevas Neander. Good morning, Elizabeth.
Good morning, Captain. How are you and all your audience?
Well,
God bless you.
Thank you very much. And we're doing pretty good compared to what we could have been doing. Personally, what was your thought, first of all, on the government shutdown?
Let me tell you, I think sometimes we have what we deserve. We look for a government that, and we've had a government that the people elected because they didn't have any vision. And consequently, the first time people didn't learn, and the second time, well, it's a good spanking. As we said in Spanish, you need a good spanking to wake up and smell the roses. We have too many elected officials, which I call them the recycled elected officials, that they lost their visions. We have a Congress that completely is out of context and away from the people. They're completely away from the people.
Well, I'm a proponent of term limits. I believe that no one should be in office, regardless of what the office is, even the 2 years of Congress, for more than 2 terms. And then they should either go up the ladder and run for Senate, or go down the ladder and run for governor, or whatever they want to run for. But they should have 2 terms, and that's it. You're out. Now, you're running against Governor Rick Scott, who's running for re-election on his second term. Why are you running against Rick Scott?
Captain, I'm going to tell you one thing. After traveling the state of Florida, being the founder of the Puerto Rican Chamber of Commerce of Florida, investing hundreds of thousands of hours for over 7 years to protect the economy, especially domestic trade between Florida and Puerto Rico, has opened my eyes. I have taken the leap of faith because the problems affecting Florida are many, and they have not been addressed. The leadership of the Republican Party has been so weak that sometimes someone has to take charge. And I have the experience and the vision to help bring back the conservative values that we are losing very rapidly, where the family is deteriorating so rapidly. The sovereignty of our nation is in serious dilemma. We have a serious problem that is not being addressed, which is the human trafficking in the state of Florida. We're third in the nation, and Central Florida is one of the hottest spots, as you very well know, and everyone in the area where we live. In 2003, I helped to rescue a human trafficking from Sarasota with the FBI. The issue was not addressed. We have hundreds of thousands of illegals brought here to the United States in the human trafficking business, and in the same time, these are modern slavery that we are here in Florida. We are giving the opportunity to many to flourish, and we have to focus and really hit hard the corporations that they know that they have illegals working and they're in the trade, and they're not doing anything about it. And we have a problem with national security, which is hundreds of thousands of birth certificates stolen in Puerto Rico, identity stolen, sold in the black market between $5,000 and $10,000 per birth certificates. And these people are here, and we don't know who they are. if they are good people, bad people. I mean, and you tell the government, you tell the Republican Party, you tell the people who's supposed to be our leaders, and they're not concerned about those issues. They're concerned about how much money they raise for their races, and they're very concerned about the greed, because they become a greed. Republicans and Democrats at the present time, for a large number, they're the same. They're not any difference. But my party, which I have devoted so much to it, is becoming so weak, and it's time for me already, say enough is enough, and I have done it.
And you're running on the Republican ticket, correct?
Yes, I am challenging the governor.
Now, what is your? Do you have a website where people can go?
Yes,
first of all,
I do. We're still working on it. It's going to be an abundance of information. It is www.elizabethforgovernor.com. And I'm going to tell you one thing. I'm bringing back the conservative that they have left in the Spanish-speaking community, and the Democrats who had left also, and they don't know where to go, and they're not voting. So I'm bringing that base back, and I am hoping that we all get together and agree to get the people back and making sure that they're here for the right reasons.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've got about 2 minutes left, and I want to give you all the time I can, but I got to ask you this question. Immigration, they want to pass an immigration bill. The president came out and said, now's the time to pass immigration. How do you feel about the immigration bill you've heard talked about, and what would you do if you do get elected governor to enforce the illegal immigration that you and I both see across the area?
Well, let me tell you one thing. All this about illegal immigration, immigration laws, this is hullabaloo. Okay, these are nonsense. They're using this to make money. Who's making the money? Mainly attorneys who are making sure that this is going to be in the burden side. Let's make it clear, something very clear. Look at Obama. Obama is an attorney. Look at our governor. He's an attorney. Keep looking, and you're going to see where the blame falls. Because we have so many attorneys who have taken our laws that protect the sovereignty of our nation, and they have used it for their own gain. The laws to make sure that we are going to have the laws that we have already in the book and implement them as they are and enforce them. It is very simple. You don't have to make new laws. Mm-hmm. We already have them.
Now, we're running out of time rapidly here, so I want to get the website out there. It's www.elizabethforgovernor, that's F-O-R, right?
Yes.
elizabethforgovernor.com.
Yes.
All right, and her name is Elizabeth Cuevas Neander. I hope I said that right.
Yes, Neander.
Yep, and you have got a daughter now. Did she join the military since we last spoke?
She is a speech pathologist doing her master, and yes, she didn't join, but she's going to be working with our soldiers, and I am so proud of her. She's in University of Central Florida, and right now she will be going to the last part of her master's.
All right. Well, Elizabeth, thank you very much. We wish you the best of luck, and we'll check in on you from time to time.
We will.
All right,
God
folks.
bless you.
Thank you. Elizabeth Cuevas Neander, everybody. www.elizabethforgovernor. I'm the Captain, Matt Bruce. We'll be right back with more. 877-969-8600.
I'm Bill Bunkley, and this is something to think about. Hillsborough County has an easy decision to make. The decision is to shutter their homeless recovery program. I'm not calling for the emergency housing program and other services for the disadvantaged to be abandoned. No, it's the fact that the county agency is so dysfunctional, those services should have been assigned to the private sector long ago. Why? In Hillsborough County, we are blessed with multiple outstanding nonprofit agencies with a proven track record in this area of expertise. One agency mentioned, Metropolitan Ministries, may consider a leadership role in the privatization move. Although President Tim Marks was non-committal when asked, they would be an excellent choice. Metropolitan Ministries knows how to work with this population. One of my family members was served by their ministry, and our family will forever be grateful. I hope Metropolitan pursues it if it's a right fit for them. I'm Bill Bunkley. Join me weekdays live from 4 to 6 for The Bill Bunkley Show on 570 and 910 WTBN.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm the Captain, Matt Bruce, 877-969-8600. A very interesting conversation there with Elizabeth Cuevas Neander. ElizabethForGovernor.com. www.elizabethforgovernor.com. Challenging Governor Rick Scott. We'll check on that in the weeks to come and see how she's doing. Now, has anybody other than me noticed the price of gasoline's gone up? Does anybody know the reason for that? Because the wholesale price of gasoline has not only dropped, but the price of crude oil is around $101 a barrel, which is as low as it's been in a while. So they raised the price of gasoline. I don't know why, and we're all getting hosed in the end result. Well, a lot of you have contacted me, and oh, by the way, thank you very much to my loyal Facebook friends, because over the weekend I celebrated a birthday. And all of a sudden, I was sitting there, and the emails started coming in. You know, first it was 5 or 6 or 7, then it was 10, 20, then it was 100, then it was 200, 300. Well, to make a long story short, I had over 500 emails wishing me happy birthday over the weekend. So thanks very much to all my Facebook friends that did that. And you can follow us on Facebook, The Captain's America Radio Show, or Matt Bruce with 2 T's, or Captain, CAPTMATT, all one word, space Bruce. You can follow me that way. That's my splashover page, if you will. And I don't know, I've got like 11 or 12,000 friends right now, so it's a lot of fun. But I'm going to give you a telephone number. If you think you're getting gouged at the gas pump and they just raise prices in front of you for no reason when you know the price of wholesale crude has dropped, the number to call is 866-966-7226. That's 866-966-7226. Tell them what you're seeing, that the gas prices are going up, and you want to know why when crude oil is falling. Now, our number, if you want to chime in, is 877-969-8600. We are streaming live at 860wgul.com. And there will be a podcast of this show put up on the website after the show in about an hour or so afterwards. But the U.S. stock exchanges are something that everybody has been watching to see the reaction to the shutdown. Now, did they drop off a bit? Sure, because the stock market definitely doesn't like uncertainty. But in the meantime, let me tell you what has happened 3 times in the government shutdowns that I remember, from 1996 with Gerald Ford when he was the president, from 1998, Jimmy Carter when he was the president, and 2005 when Bill Clinton was the president. Each time there was a government shutdown, the economy came roaring back better than what it was before. Now, the only difference about this time in history as compared to the other 3 was the reason for the shutdown was settled for at least another year. In our case, we have to go through this all over again in January and February. So I think through the end of the year, the economy will move along. But once we hit Christmas time, if the Christmas figures come in and they're not very good, then you'll start to see some backing down on the economy. That's just my thought. What do you think? 877-969-8600. Well, I want to take a look at some things, and a good friend of mine, Ed Klein, who I've had the pleasure of meeting and interviewing on several occasions, wrote a book called The Amateur. If you ever get a chance, folks, read that book, because I'm going to mention 8 specific things that the Obama administration promised us they would do, and they haven't done it. Number 1, we're going to draw a line in the sand, and we're going to go after Syria because they use chemical weapons on their people. Item number 1, Syria. Think about it. Where'd that get us? Nowhere. All the threats, all the innuendo, all the scare tactics, and we're the ones that acted like we were scared. Then you've got Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda's been decimated. Their leaders are in disarray. They can't wage any type of attacks like they've done before. Oh, really? Well, let me tell you a little interesting fact. While the press was concentrating on Afghanistan and Iraq and parts of the Middle East where Al-Qaeda was flourishing, they didn't even mention for years, until about 5 years ago, that Al-Qaeda had franchised themselves and allowed splinter groups to pop up in 130 other countries around the world. Folks, how does that make things better when it comes to decimating Al-Qaeda? It doesn't. And then you've got item number 3, gun control. We were going to have gun control legislation. It was going to come in. Oh, my God, what happened in Sandy Hook was awful. What happened in Colorado was terrible. What happened elsewhere in the country was just unbearable. We were going to have gun control. How'd that work out? And then we've got immigration, just like we were talking about with gubernatorial candidate Elizabeth Cuevas Neander a couple minutes ago. Got immigration. What's happened there? Nothing. Now we've got number 5, the budget deals. How many of these budget squabbles have we had in the 5.5 going on 6 years that Barack Obama's been in office? How about all 5.5 or 6 years? Every one of them. Then we've got what was promised, item number 6, with the deficit, that they were going to lower the deficit because they were going to attack that, this, that, and the other. Has anybody seen that happen? Then we've got item number 7, unemployment. This is a point that should drive you nuts. We don't count the people who are no longer looking for jobs. So our unemployment numbers are not accurate. As a result, we get a higher number than what we should be getting if we counted all the people that we should be counting. And then there's health care. How many of you, show of hands, heard Barack Obama say, well, a family is going to save some $2,500 a year in health costs, and by all the latest reports from anybody that wants to talk about it, including Democratic financial people, it's going to cost them more than $3,000. So how have we gained anything? How have we gained anything? We haven't. And then, when we did have a government shutdown, 85% of the government was operating at 100%. 60% by one poll, 70% by another, 75% by another, 80% by another. Average them all together, you've got 72% of the country wants to vote every member of Congress out and start over again. Only 5 to 11% approve of the job that Congress is doing. And 81% on the average, according to Real Clear Politics, believe this country is going in the wrong direction. What do you think is going to happen next year in the midterm elections? Well, I'd like to be a fly on the wall. We're coming up on the bottom of the hour. It is another beautiful morning in the Tampa Bay area. By the way, it's going to cool off later in the week. We're going to get some fall weather, and I do mean some fall weather in here. So we're going to be coming back with our good friend Frank Salvato from the New Media Journal. We're getting ready to take a break. I want to remind everybody the number to call, 877-969-8600. I am the captain, and I'm sitting in for Chris Markowski today, who's off on personal business. The website is thecaptainsamerica.talkspot.com for me. I'm also on Facebook. You can follow me, The Captain's America Radio Show. And don't forget, Chris's website is watchdogonwallstreet.com. All right, folks, let's not forget watchdogonwallstreet.com, the Captain's America Radio Show. And by the way, we always appreciate your opinion, regardless of what it happens to be. And if you don't want to call and be a star on the radio, then you can email us. But you can do that off the captainsamerica.talkspot.com or by going to Chris's website, watchdogonwallstreet.com. Now, I have one final thing to say about everything that we've seen and the direction that this country's going. The deal that we had, the fractured Congress passing a bill to reopen government to avoid default, we saw pandering, we saw political bribery, because in case you didn't know that, I'm talking to Jordan. He's waving at me through the window. In case you didn't know that, Mitch McConnell got $2.5 billion in federal aid. Most of it was to build a dam, which had been proposed, not only in Kentucky, but also in Tennessee. And that is the payback, if you will. The payback. But, folks, I wrote a column last week. America needs some common sense. You can Google that phrase, America needs some common sense. It was put up on over 50 websites. It was printed in 2 major newspapers. And on Sunday, I had the honor and the privilege of being able to go on one of those talking head shows and mention it on the radio. It was the ABC version of This Week with, what's her name? Kawana Pour or whatever it is. I forgot her name now, but it's like an Arabic name. But I was on the radio talking about it. So I was very happy to do that. Now, if Jordan gives me the okay, we're going to take our break, and we're going to come back with Frank Salvato. Don't go anywhere. A lot more coming your way.
860 WGUL.
Welcome back, everybody. A little Pink Floyd bringing you back in. I'm the Captain Matt Bruce, sitting in for Chris Markowski. He's off on some personal business. 877-969-8600 if you want to chime in. Well, we've got a good friend on the radio, and I feel really good now because I've got my ultimate Obama survival guide, how to survive, thrive, and prosper during Obamageddon, as well as my good friend Frank Salvato, who wrote an article last week, which I got to have him tell you about because it's entitled How Obamacare Screws the Working Class Hard. Good morning, Frank.
Good morning, Mr. Captain.
Now, most people really haven't paid attention to why the Supreme Court agreed to make Obamacare, or the Affordable Health Care Act, constitutional because it raised new taxes. You and I know what those new taxes are. And they start with a 3.8% surtax on investment income, meaning dividends, interest, rent, capital gains, annuities, house sales, partnerships, etc., when your adjusted income is more than $200,000 or $250,000 for joint filers. And that is something that a lot of small businesses don't have much of a difficult time making when you're talking gross revenue.
Oh yeah, and that's just the beginning. I mean, the list is really incredible, and what I printed was abbreviated because when you look into this behemoth bill, they're hidden at every corner. There's a 0.9% surtax on Medicare taxes for those making over $200,000. Flexible spending account contributions are capped at $2,500. The itemized deduction hurdle for medical expenses is going up to 10%. Penalty on non-medical withdrawals from healthcare savings accounts now 20% instead of 10%. A tax on 10% of indoor tanning services, for all things to stick into a bill. A 40% tax on Cadillac healthcare plans. We've heard that because of all the union stuff.
Yep.
Medicine cabinet tax eliminates the ability to pay for over-the-counter medications from a pre-tax flexible spending account. Mm-hmm. Penalty tax for those who don't buy health insurance.
$95. Yep.
And to cap off my list, there was a 2.3% excise tax on medical devices, which we've heard a lot about in the news over those negotiations for the shutdown.
Now, we were all told to begin with, and the speeches were put out there not only by Barack Obama, Joe Biden, but also Kathleen Sebelius, who, in my humble opinion, should be fired for the way that the healthcare.gov website was rolled out. And, oh, by the way, this morning at 0300, I went over, like I do every morning, to healthcare.gov, and I flipped on the public information page, and it said this site is down for service. Now, was it last week, I think, they were telling you, hey, the best time to go on the healthcare website is after midnight, between midnight and 5 o'clock in the morning, because that's when you won't have any problems. Well, they were down this morning, probably back up now. I haven't tried again. But the fact of the matter is, both the Democrats and the Republicans are now finding out about what you wrote about and about what I've been talking about for 3 years, all these taxes that are in there, which amount to around, $2 trillion worth of costs somewhere in there?
That's the total. That's the basic total that the GAO said it was going to cost over the long run. And anything that has to do with the federal government, you might as well multiply by 5 or 10.
And I don't care really, about this particular bill. We can go in and we can change certain provisions in this bill so as not to be taxed into oblivion, number one. The health coverage can still cover everybody, number two, because that's very important, pre-existing conditions and all that. And those people that are going to get hosed because they might have a plan that's better and they really don't need this, don't need to be monkeying around with this at all. As a matter of fact, correct me if I'm wrong, the people that already have Medicare and Medicaid don't even need to sign up on healthcare.gov.
Yeah, it's a moot point. Basically, this is saying if you don't have the whole thing about Obamacare is if you don't have insurance, you have to get it, and it's going to cost you through the nose. And that's the basic plan. There are some good things in this bill, and nobody on the right side of the aisle has said there isn't. The pre-existing conditions thing is one. But it's a rarity that you find something good in this bill because it's such a draconian measure put in place to make sure that a small group of people are actually covered. Remember, if you and you can't reiterate what you said enough. If you're on Medicaid or Medicare, you're already covered. This is for the people who don't have insurance, the people who've chosen not to have insurance. And to say that you can't afford it, there are plans out there that maybe have high deductibles now that literally will cost you less now or before than it would under Obamacare. So the way they've structured it is just incredibly elementary. It's infantile almost.
And folks, we're speaking with Frank Salvato, the managing editor of the New Media Journal, his website, newmediajournal.us. And while you're there, check out basicsprojects.org. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right. Now, it's basic. Did I say basics, or is it basics?
It's basic projects.
Okay.
Basics. Now you got me going. Basicsproject.org.
All right. Well, now let's go back to something else that I want to talk about here, because this is something that I feel very strongly about, have for many, many years, and I subscribe to this theory when I was involved in town government. As an elected official, I don't know, it was 30 years ago, roughly. I had one term where I was appointed to fill a vacancy for the town assessor's position, and then that was like the last 18 months of his term, because he retired. And then I got elected the next year and got elected chairman of the board of assessors in my town. And as a result, we were able to roll back the taxes during the Ronald Reagan era and follow the lead of the federal government, and our little town grew. At the end of that, though, Frank, and I know you know the story, so bear with me. At the end of that, they came up and said, we want you to run for town supervisor, and here's your clam bake tickets. You can either give us the $3,000 now, or you can actually sell them to somebody. And I said, what'd you say? They said, well, for $3,000, it's yours. Your position is yours. You got the elected position. That was when I turned around and walked away from politics.
Oh yeah, that's all too common in politics today, and it's been a staple of Chicago politics for eons. It's play to pay. You have to sell the tickets. If you have a patronage job, if you don't sell the tickets, suddenly you don't get your raise, you don't get your promotion. It's a game, and it's corruption is what it is. When you corrupt the politics to that level, then nobody is getting served, and only cronies and pals and connected people. The nepotism flourishes. It's bad all the way around for government.
And this is why ever since I've been just going anywhere I could go and talk about the fact that we need to have term limits. 2 terms. I don't care what the position or the post is, if it's a 1 year, a 2 year, a 3 year, a 4 year, a 6 year, whatever it is. 2 terms and you're out, and you either move up to the next level or you go down. For example, a congressman goes to the Senate position, or a congressman goes down to, say, run for governor or run for attorney general in a state or run for county executive, whatever. But that's what needs to be done. And we, the people, are the people that these representatives work for. We, the people, not the other way around, where these people get in there, they stay there for years and years and years. You look at their net worth. I'll give you an example. A congressman a couple counties north of here was worth a couple $100,000 at the end of his first election. He was elected back in 2010. He's now worth over $1.5 million, and he got that, I'm sure, by the use of insider information that he made a lot of money with.
Well, that and the connections he makes in his office. When you have authority over people's well-being, and especially businesses' well-being, suddenly people pay attention to your needs, quote unquote, and that's just part of the game. And if you don't have good people, who are honest people and equitable people who are representing you in elected government, then you are going to see people enrich themselves at the public trough, as it were.
Yeah, and our politicians, a lot of them go in there and become millionaires, and some of them become billionaires, and that just is plain wrong.
It's kind of hard to understand how you can become a millionaire or a billionaire when the average salary for a U.S. representative is $170,000. How do you become a millionaire on that income?
Yeah, insider information. And we know we've got a divided government, but we've also got the same division amongst the voters. It's about the same, about 50-50. And you can't get anybody to agree on anything except one thing only. And that is this poll that keeps coming out saying that 75 to 80% of the Congress needs to be booted or rebooted and start over again.
Yeah, the sad thing about that poll is, and it is an accurate poll, and it's almost been consistent for the last 10 years. It just keeps going up incrementally.
Yep.
Sad thing is everybody's pointing at everybody else's representative. They don't want to look at their own. Now is the time to actually take a look at your representative and your senator and look at the way they've voted and have the courage to say, you know what, you haven't been doing the job that we sent you there to do, and maybe it's time that another person, maybe a better person or a more equitable, honest person is put into that position.
Well, we've just lost one of our longtime congressmen here, 42 years, I believe, in the Congress, Bill Young. He definitely served the area well. He's responsible for bringing money for CENTCOM, for MacDill Air Force Base, for having it grow the way that it did. But the fact of the matter is, he's another example. You know, once he got in, he stayed in, but he did some good things for the area. However, now it looks like as if the people that are surfacing to run for his seat in the special election that will basically be about, 15, 18 months long or something like that. The former gubernatorial candidate on the Democratic side, Alex Sink, has expressed interest in running for this. Also, we've got Rick Foster, the former mayor of St. Petersburg, has expressed an interest in running for the position. The only person we haven't heard from yet who lives in the district, Charlie Crist.
Well, just give it time. I'm sure he'll surface to the top like anything else oily.
I'm going to have a tough time telling you right now that Charlie Crist is not going to be interested and is not frothing at the gums over this one, because I think he thinks that this is the easiest way for him to get into the mix in Washington, D.C., and why wouldn't it be?
It would be, and anybody who's a thinking person has to look at Charlie Crist and say, not only did he screw his original Republican Party, he kind of screwed the Democrats too. So who would he be serving besides his own self-interest?
Now, my final point is the government shutdown hurt a lot of states, but when you take a look at where the states are that got hurt the most, the number one state was Virginia. No surprise there, right?
No surprise at all.
The number two state was Alaska. How about that?
No, that's a little bit more surprising than Virginia.
The number 3 state was Alabama.
That makes sense.
The number 4 state was Washington. Well, state, but it's the District of Columbia. Any surprise there?
Absolutely not. Everybody is federal there.
And let me go to
and Northern Virginia. I mean, it just makes sense.
And let me go to number 5, Maine.
Maine. All 7 people.
Yeah, but the fact of the matter is, what's up in Maine if you're a Navy guy or a Coast Guard guy? They got
you got bases up there.
You sure do, and you've also got right there in New Hampshire, right on the border of Maine, you got that nuclear submarine base they go in and out of on a regular basis. But anyway, folks, we've been speaking with Frank Silvato, the managing editor of the New Media Journal, his website, newmediajournal.us, and don't forget, basicsproject.org. Check that out as well. And Frank, we wish you all the best and hope to be able to talk to you real soon.
We'll talk to you soon. Stay low.
All right, folks, we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. 877-969-8600. bass drums are pounding in the background. We are back. 877-969-8600. I'm the Captain Matt Bruce, sitting in for Chris Markowski, who's taking a personal day off this morning. I feel very confident today. I've got the ultimate Obama survival guide right here beside me, written by my good friend Wayne Allen Root, How to Survive, Thrive, and Prosper During Obamageddon. And there's even a chapter in there talking about me and something that we proposed a number of years ago when they first came out with the Affordable Health Care Act and what was going to happen. Told you so, told you so, told you so. That's all I'm going to say. And if you allow it to happen again, folks, then you need to be shamed upon your own self. Now, I don't believe Chris has said much about this, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the American commandos who captured Abu Anas al-Libi, the Libyan leader of Al-Qaeda. Yes, I said Al-Qaeda and I said Libya in the same word. Now, he was captured and immediately taken aboard the USS San Antonio, where he was drilled for about 10 days. Then he was moved, and he's now in New York City, where they're going to try him for what he was indicted on more than a decade ago in the twin 1998 bombings at the U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania. They killed over 200 people, including a dozen Americans, and if convicted, he could get life behind bars. Now, Mr. al-Libi is known as one of Al-Qaeda's early computer experts. Al-Libi is accused of helping plan and conduct surveillance for the attacks. He's also believed to have used an early-generation Apple computer to assemble surveillance photographs. Now, why is this important at the present time? Well, it's important because we may be able to gain a lot more information from al-Libi about some of the other things that have been going on. Now, you kill him with kindness is the way that one senator, Senator Patrick Leahy of Vermont, said. You kill him with kindness because the real issue is intelligence. And once he gets a lawyer, he holds all the cards. Put it this way, now he decides whether he will talk and what he will get in return. So we will see what happens. But I'm telling you right now, folks, if you think Al-Qaeda, and I mentioned this earlier in the discussion on the show, if you think Al-Qaeda has been decimated and you think Al-Qaeda has gone away, back when we first heard about Al-Qaeda and a handful of countries that they were in, including Afghanistan, back when we went into Afghanistan to rid the country of the Taliban, and we found out that Al-Qaeda and the Taliban were working hand in hand, something that most people in the intel community had known for about 10 years, but the media didn't want to pick up on it and report it accurately. The fact of the matter is, we now are aware of Al-Qaeda's presence in over 130 countries around the world because Al-Qaeda has franchised themselves and allowed groups that may not call themselves Al-Qaeda, but call themselves something else and then pledge their allegiance to Al-Qaeda as a result. So this is something that we really need to pay attention to, because while we have pulled our troops, for the most part, out of Iraq, while we are pulling our troops out of Afghanistan, we are still engaged in a war on terror in both countries. If you don't believe me, ask somebody who serves in the military. They'd be more than happy to tell you. So, if you really want to know what's going on, and you don't trust the mainstream media, then you need to start paying attention to some of the intel folks. Now, I'm going to give you the name of a great website where you can go and verify intel from former CIA directors, former four-star generals and admirals, as well as many servicemen and women of high rank who have served in the global war on terror, as well as Vietnam, dating back to World War II, Korea, so on and so forth. And that is standupamericaus.org. standupamericaus.org. I'm very proud and honored to be a member of what's called the kitchen cabinet over there of retired Army Major General Paul Vallely. It's something that I take as a great honor to be able to be over there and walk amongst those people and to be able to comment anytime I want with those people and find out things that are going on. And if you want to know the best information available, standupamericaus.org. But in the meantime, if you want to find out more about me, it's thecaptainsamerica.talkspot.com or follow us on Facebook, The Captains America Radio Show. And don't forget Chris's website, watchdogonwallstreet.com. You not only hear him here weekdays from 5 to 6, Bill Bennett coming up after the top of the hour news, but you'll also hear him on the weekends with his Watchdog and Wall Street radio show. All right, folks, it's been my honor and privilege. Hope you have a great day. Go out and tell a military man or woman, police or firefighter, thank you for the job they're doing. Watch their face light up. See you all later, everybody. Chris will be back tomorrow. God bless America.
Yesterday was high school, now I'm death at 1,000 meters, hanging out with the boys. There's no two ways to say it. It's a long, hard road and rough, hanging out with the boys. This desert is a lot like home. Faces never change, but the names are lost at times in the wind. All of my friends are going on to finer things. They think of me time to time, I hope they do. Hanging out with the boys on the line. Grandfather told me the best years of his life was spent hanging out with the boys. Apparently Belgium was a bitch, but he still had his fun hanging out with the boys. I had a second cousin lose his life on the Mekong in a lot of smoke and noise. Maybe the last thing he saw in those weeds was the sight of those smiling faces he knew he'd never see again in this world, 'cause he was there hanging out with the boys on the line. I sleep tonight on the mountain, I sleep tonight on the sea, hanging out with the boys. That Mona Lisa gonna have to wait to see me hanging out here with the boys until I catch that freedom